Greetings, everyone. I can't do a Farnsworth voice. Well, it really does not like it when I load state, does it? Get that. Can I fix this by doing this, maybe? Oh, crap. Nope, I can't. Wow. Best game ever, guys. Maybe I can, like, Nope. This'll fix it. Well, whatever. So, I was in the middle of talking about something when I had to go and hit a place. Got there like 23 minutes before they even closed. For anybody wondering why there was that sudden wah! So, oh god, do I have to do this entire cutscene like this? I gotta see if I can fix this. Because this is an important cutscene. Especially since there's a mistranslation in it. Let's see. Maybe if we do... Whoa, that's not what we want. What's up, Samurai? Haven't you ever played Final Fantasy VI like this? Oof, nope, blurry. Blurry's bad. See, I know how to fix this. All I have to do is do a reset, but I can't because I'm in the middle of a cutscene. Let's try this. Nope, that didn't do anything. This is why I prefer the version of SNES 9X that I use, which is, for those of you curious, not this version. Whatever. Let's just power through this cutscene, I guess. It'll screen transition after Kefka does his thing. Okay, so I want to talk about Cid. We'll save the Cid discussion for a moment. What's about to happen here is Kefka's going to show up and be like, aha! Now, here's the thing. This is actually probably one of the most crucial moments in the history of the game. I'm not even kidding. Because we know about Magicite. Ramu explained Magicite to us. But then Cid perceives Magicite and is like, huh, so that's how that works. And by wonderful happenstance, Kefka sees the exact same thing. So even if Cid had decided to speak with his conscience and decide not to explain what Magicite is to Gestalt or anything like that, Kefka's seen it, and Kefka's now going to explain it. So now, for all intents and purposes, the Empire now has access to Magicite and the knowledge thereof, and they're going to be switching their focus on that in the future. Remember that one of the things that happens after this... Oh, I was hoping that would fix it. What the... Oh, my Twitch is still up. There we go. Forgot to close that. Anyways, one of the things that is going to become a consequence of this is that the Empire in general is going to start researching specifically how to force Espers into Magicite and start researching Magicite in specific. I'm going to mute for just a second. He got his knees. There we go. Yep, see, I told you all we needed is a screen transition. Now, you ever wonder how tall the Magitech research facility is? Well, let me tell you, it's pretty tall. Okay, so, like I said, a couple of things. These are really important things to discuss. That's why I'm going to pause as we go down the infinite tunnel of the research facility here to discuss them. First of all, you might not understand the significance. Actually, you know, first I'm going to say hi to everyone. Hi Titans, hi Little Billy, hi Geek, hi Samurai, hi Petey, hi Django, hi Javan, hi Deutsch. What's up, guys? Hugs and bro fists as appropriate. So, I want you to imagine you're trying to research something, well, honestly, like hey, I'm Santa, at a library or in an encyclopedia is a better example, because nowadays we have the internet, and that's kind of cheating. But even on the internet, this is kind of true. Let's say you're trying to look something up and you don't know what it's called. You have no idea what it's called. This actually happened to me recently. I was trying to find a specific device, which I still don't know the name of, for my dad. It was something that he was going to be using in his coach, and I couldn't think of the name of it. And so when I go to the internet to look for this thing, and I'm like, clamp thing or like brace thing, I couldn't find anything about it because I didn't know what it was called, right? Similarly, when I went into Home Depot with him, we were there, and it's like, hey, I'd like a clamp thing, and I'd describe it, but I didn't know the name of it. I'm just giving you this as a direct example because I'm sure some of you know what I'm talking about or have had a similar problem, where you're looking for item A or concept A or whatever, either for research or for your own purposes or something, and you don't know what it's called, and so you don't have anything to find, right? Now, I'm bringing this up because this is relevant to what happens here. The Empire has been researching espers and magic and all that fun stuff, but at no point in time have they been researching magicite, or what happens to an esper when they are killed or forced into magicite or that kind of a thing, right? So, now that they are aware of this concept, they can switch their focus. They can switch all of their focus from just espers and magic to specifically looking into magicite, any records that have maintained, any ideas of, ancient battles or things that have occurred, that kind of a thing, which involve magicite. And now they actually have a meaning for that word. Before, they might have just seen the word and been like, it might have meant nothing to them. You get the difference here? So now the Empire is going to switch all their effort to that, and I think personally that actually explains one of the biggest reasons why it is that from this point on, Kefka in particular will suddenly be getting a lot stronger and have significant skill at being able to force individuals into becoming magicite as opposed to just killing him. Hey, Pencil. Yes, you do, actually, Javan. His fortitude is a +1, and his willpower is a +2. He is a level 1, well... Now, I've heard a theory about this matter, and that theory is that this elevator is actually infinitely long. It's like a Minecraft elevator going to the far lands, except down instead of right. Anyways, the theory is that, you notice, and I've talked about this many, many times, you notice how Kefka kind of mirrors the party's journey throughout the game. I've talked about this several times. Kefka starts out the game so pathetic, so weak. All he can do is hit you with a flail. This is a great example of gameplay and story integration, by the way. He starts off pathetically weak. By the time you fight him in Narsh, he knows level 2 spells. By the time you encounter him in here, he's kicking around espers. By the time you fight him in Thamasa, he is killing dozens of espers simultaneously and forcing them into magicite. Then he moves the statues, and then he turns into the new god of magic. He, for a lack of a better term, levels up, just like we do. I have heard many, many different theories and many different reasonings for why it is that he has been leveling up alongside us. One of the strongest theories I've ever heard, though, who's Amy's Baking Company? One of the strongest theories I've ever heard personally is that this moment here completely screwed the pooch, because the theory is that they actually have more espers than the ones we just freed. Bear me out. We don't know this, of course. There's nothing really corroborating this. But if they had more espers than the ones we just freed, and the ones that were already dead in the pit, then what they could do is they could go and force them down and force them into magicite, which Kefka could then take. And it would explain why Kefka takes this sudden huge leap forward in a relative power level between the previous section to this, where he casts level 2 spells, and the next section after this, where he could demolish just about anything in his path. We don't know if that's true or not. Like I said, there's plenty of theories as to why Kefka continues to get stronger. The other prevailing theory, and I actually really like this one, I'm not saying I adhere to it, but I really like this theory, is that Kefka the original experiment on Kefka to turn him into the first Magitech Knight obviously went wrong, and obviously warped and twisted him, but I like the concept that it attuned him, for lack of a better term, to magic, just to the very concept of magic. And so as Magitech is being used more often, as the Espers are growing more commonplace, as Magicite is starting to see a resurgence, as the party starts to use more and more magic, there is literally more magic that Kefka is attuned to, and so he slowly sees his own power increase and has no idea why. He is just literally getting more magically powerful. I'm curious what you guys think, and of course, which theory you like, because I think that's just an awesome idea. So let's talk about Sid. Wrong Sid. So I asked last night, and then I didn't get to read your answers, so feel free to repeat yourself, please, because I would like to hear your answers. What you guys think about Sid? Right? What do you guys think about Sid? Now, Night Dawn just gave me his thing, so thank you for anticipating my question here. Sid is an interesting character for me. Javan, go Google Dice Roller and pull up the Wizards one. Hey, Safis, I don't actually have sub things yet. I'm not a partner yet with Twitch, so because Twitch hates me for whatever reason. So that's not actually a thing yet. Sorry. Someday, hopefully, fingers crossed, I will actually be a partner so that I can have emotes and priority on bandwidth and all that kind of fun stuff. And on mobile, that's the other thing, mobile support, so people can watch me on phones and whatnot easier, as opposed to just intermittently if they decide to allow it, maybe. Anyways, Sid. Now, Sid's an interesting character here. We'll go ahead and stop the infinite staircase, or infinite elevator here, just so you guys don't have to go crazy from that anymore. Yes, actually, Little Billy, if that is the true, if that is actually what's happening there, which we obviously don't know. There we go. I find Sid to be an interesting character personally. I don't want to lay down judgment, and as ever, I'd love to hear your thoughts, like Night Dawn gave earlier. Sid, in my opinion, is effectively the best example of the high int, low wisdom type of character. I don't think Sid is actually malicious. I don't think he is malevolent, and I don't think he is apathetic. Now, I mention that because in my mind, those three things are the most key definitions of evil, right? To give you examples of all the above, malevolence, the idea of just spreading darkness and pain and suffering, is something that Sauron had for a significant period of his career. Maliciousness, the idea of deliberately, personally wanting to hurt someone for no other reason than the fact that you hate that person or those people. Trying to think of a good example of maliciousness. I'm not coming up with a good example right off the top of my head. And then there's apathy. Apathy's easy. My favorite example of this is actually from real life. There is a journal that was recovered from a Nazi soldier at one of the camps we don't like to talk about, of him complaining that he couldn't sleep because the children wouldn't stop crying in pain, screaming, That's apathy right there. That's, I don't care about your suffering. You don't matter to me. Apathy in this case is also a form of selfishness. Supreme self-interest. That could also be described by a gentleman named Tarkin, who was more interested in himself than an entire planet. Just to name a direct example there. Again, going back to fiction. So, like I said, in my mind, these three things are the pinnacles of evil. Now, I don't think Sid embodies any of these three things. But, as Night Dawn pointed out, he is completely naive. He is, again, high int, low is. He has no idea what he's doing. He doesn't care. He loves the science of it. And it is clear he does love the science of it. And he does love getting into it. He does love all this experimentation he's been doing. It's just at no point in time has it ever really occurred to him that what he's doing is wrong. Does that excuse him? Well, that's a judgment call. And I'm not going to say it is right or wrong to judge him for what he's done. Is he a villain? Well, and Titans points out Titans was actually a villain. However, as Titans also points out, and I agree with Titans there, if Sid could do his work with the Returners, he would have too. Because he doesn't care. Yeah, and that is the other thing. Science for science. Hey, Rosulia. Sorry. What's up, man? Wave. Science for science's sake is not an active excuse against evil. Science for science's sake is an excuse for now you not being a complete monster. And that's the other thing. We have to consider that evil has gradients. There are layers. Like ogres have layers. Sorry. There are layers of evil. You know, mugging someone on the street because you want a $5, in my opinion, is evil. It is not a particularly large-scale evil, but it is still evil. You know, destroying an entire planet because screw them is also evil, just a lot more evil. You see where I'm going with this? So so now I'm going to finally go and give my opinion. I've waited a bit. I've let people chat their opinion in the chat there. I do think Sid is a bad guy. I do think Sid is evil, but I think his evil is along the lines of, to be perfectly blunt, deliberate I'm trying to think how best to put this, deliberate self-denial. And here's an interesting question, Safis. We don't know if he was aware of the slave crown, but how many other people in the Empire have the technological and magical know-how to create something like a slave crown other than Sid? Think about that. Now, to immediately contrast that point, would it not be difficult? How hard would it be for Emperor Gestalt to not inform Sid about what he intends to use the crown for? It could have been for riot control. He could have been like, hey, you could use this for, we're going to use this to bring down dangerous beasts or to control monsters. They could even be using those crowns to control monsters, and it might explain why there's so many of them in Imperial-controlled areas. We don't know. But my point is, it's not a black and white situation. That's actually really my point in a nutshell with Sid. He is very much not a black and white character or a black and white situation. One thing, though, just going to say this. While Sid, shows remorse for his actions and tries to make up for that, and that does mean something, at no point in time does he actually admit his part in doing bad. If you don't understand what I mean by that, it's a slight difference from what happens with General Leo, basically, is what I'm getting to here. General Leo freely admits his human flaws in that he knew wrong was happening and didn't do anything to stop it because of his cowardice or because of his blindness. Sid never really admits that. Now, he spends pretty much from now until the end of the game trying to make up for it. He tries to convince the Emperor of the error of the war. He tries to work with the Returners. He tries to help take care of Celis. But at no point in time does he ever say he's sorry or admit his own flaws in the matter. This is why I bring up the denial thing. I personally think Sid had retreated behind a mask, because this is FF6, the game of masks, and that mask was the detached scientist. Now, we know Sid is not a detached scientist. We see him be quite emotive and quite caring several times in the game, almost every time he's on camera, really. But what we do not see, I guess I think the best way I would explain this is, of course, just my take on this, is that I feel like Sid is harboring a tremendous amount of guilt, and it's so much that he actually can't face it. That's why he never apologizes. That's how he never tries to do it. He just tries to make it up to people. He never can actually face the guilt that he was doing all this stuff. And this is the most important reasoning. You ready for this? He doesn't feel guilty because he was being forced into doing horrible things. That's the mask. The mask is that he was being forced into doing things. The mask is that he didn't care about what he was doing. The reality is he knew on some level or another that he was doing evil, that he was doing wrong things. He was perpetuating an evil with his science and his experiments, and he wanted to because he loved the science of it. That's a different kind of guilt. You know, it's one thing to say I was forced to. That is a form of guilt. But it is a completely other thing to say I wanted to, and to feel guilty about that. You know what I mean? I'll give you a direct example. In Farscape, there's an episode, The Way We Weren't, I believe is the name of it, where we find out that both Pilot and Aaron, I'm not going to give spoilers, because just in case some of you haven't seen Farscape, but Pilot and Aaron both did something really horrible in their past because they wanted the results of that horrible action. And like I said, that is a different type of guilt than all the other things that Erin had done in the past that she was forced to do because it was her job or it was her orders or whatever. You understand the difference there? Now, this is, of course, just speculation on my part, but based on the way Sid's talking and based on the way Sid is presented for the rest of the game, that's my take on it. And now... Yeah, I like that dice roller, Javan. It's actually one I've used many times when I don't have access to physical dice. Alright, so then we talked to Sid, and he's like, it's interesting that the first thing he talks about is Celis, by the way. And Kafka has somehow found us in the pit of infinite despair. And then we have the second on-rails section after the Leet River thing here. Now, I'm going to be 100% honest. This looked terrible even in the day for me. This section, God almighty. Whoops. This section just looks awful to me. I'm sorry, and it always has. I know. I've said many times about how graphics have aged well. I use Link to the Past as an example of a game whose graphics have aged beautifully. I think FF6's graphics have aged pretty well. But even back when I was playing this on the SNES, this just looked bad to me. Just, ugh, Oh, Sid is definitely the better scientist. You have to understand, Hojo is not a good scientist. That's actually an integral part of his character arc, that Hojo is a bad scientist. That's part of why he does so many of the things he does, because he knows he's not a good scientist, and he's just, meh. Oh, it was definitely cutting edge for the SNES here. Not arguing it. This Mode 7 stuff was really was a cool kind of a concept. I liked the music that plays during it. But this is one sequence that I think if we ever got the 3D proper Awesome remake of Awesome, this sequence would probably look really, really cool if they did it right. Can you imagine actually being on this train cart and they're like balancing and they're zooming through the train yard of the Magitech Research Facility, and every now and again these mag rotors and other creatures just leap out and are like, aha! I just think that would look really cool in proper 3D Awesome. But then again, let's be honest, most of this game would. Like the other things I pointed out earlier, like falling down the Barren Falls, or going through the not the Leet River, excuse me, the Serpent's Trench. Bunch of cool stuff there. We're getting some good luck with our encounters, actually, which is good. So, it's time for confession time here at Archie and Gaia, the Lorerunner. I have actually read it, Maz, and that's an interesting reasoning. I like your reasoning. I'm still voting for Terra. I'll need to post my reasoning soon. But I do actually have to... I do like the way you took that, and it certainly makes sense that Magus would take that kind of a take with that. Take that kind of strategy, I mean. Anyway, so... when I first played this, or actually it wasn't when I first played this game. Hey Baronessa, it was like when I second or third played this game. It was one of the earlier times though. Oh, congrats, Samurai. I was stuck here because I was really, really, really low level. I was doing a low level run, basically. I was lower level than I am now in the game, and I haven't been leveling this time through the game. And I didn't know the game well enough to be able to play the game at low level effectively and efficiently, right? So I could get through these things and get to number 128, and then I would die. And I had saved here in this area, and I should have saved up in the research facility, because the research facility is a great leveling spot, right? So yeah, I was stuck here. I talked about this earlier during this review. I was stuck here because you know you get to the 128 and you die. You save your experience, rewind, back to the save point, go through the same like 4 fights or whatever, and then die. And then I just kept doing this over and over and over for, I swear to God, like an hour and a half, until I was high enough level to actually be able to take down number 128. By the way, in case anybody wonders why I say the experiments Sid does are evil, look at the previous guy. Was it 1024, I think? Number 024 and number 128. In other words, these things were deliberate creatures that were designed and created either as a combination, and yes, yeah, you can just crush them now, either as a combination of other monsters or pure technology, because we do see technological bits in him or whatever, as an attempt to make a Magitech creature. I personally like the idea that both of the numbers were basically tossed down here in order to, just kind of get rid of them, and they've just been roaming the depths of the facilities ever since. But yeah, when I got to this save, I was like, oh, thank God, save. Which actually was a bad idea back then, because then I have to immediately fight the cranes. Like, whatever. At least these guys are better exp, if a slight more bit irritating. So, someone had a question. Little Billy had a question. What is the name of that song? It's not Save Them. Or is it? Actually, I think that might be Save Them, Little Billy. Try that one. Because I think that's what that one is. Anyways, Django, that's kind of the point. This is, like I said when I did my very first video, like 3 days ago, however long it's been now, the intent here is to do something I've never done before with FF6. And actually review it, and really fine-tooth comb it, and really dig into it. For more, going deeper than I ever have before, that kind of a thing. Hey, it's Setzer. Yeah, the first time I went to Zozo, I had a similar problem, Tristan. There's 2 enemies there that just would destroy me. The Slam Dancers, because they know Fire 2, which usually just killed me. And I forget what they're called, but the big guys who cast Magnitude 8. Every time I'd see it, I'm like, oh god, big guy, okay. Oh, Magnitude 8, oh, and I'd end with like 2 people left alive at like 20 health, Back in the day, it never really occurred to me to run from battles. I don't know why. So here's Kefka. Now, this is another of those scenes. I know I say this a lot, but man, I would love to see this in full 3D awesome. Seriously, picture the airship coming down, landing at the base of the facility, and everyone gets on board. And as it's landing in the distance, you see these massive cranes just kind of come out of the of the Imperial Palace, and as the airship starts to take off, the cranes just kind of lunge up into the sky and slatch onto the thing, and then it turns immediately into the battle with the 2. Wouldn't that... Just tell me that wouldn't be awesome. Tell me that wouldn't be cool. Yeah, kind of, Samurai, now to think about it, with the chain things. That would be so cool. Do I prefer Sid as an ally party member or adversary? Let me think about that. Damn it. Now, it has to be good CGI, but honestly, that's why I call it 3D awesome, not just 3D. Not FF... Well, I don't want to say anything, but full 3D awesome is when it's just freaking awesome, I don't know how else to put that. I'm telling you, by the way, the Figaro brothers are just overpowered. They're literally carrying my party right now. Locke is just here because he has to be. Setzer's here just because he has to be. Edgar and Sabin are like, hey, we're just going to solo the boss. There we go. Actually do something with Setzer here. Okay, so Sid is an ally, party member, adversary. Well, let's actually think about that, because the first Sid, well, okay, the first Sid by retcon was an FF1, although that was a retcon, and he was an NPC. The second Sid in FF2, he was an ally. We had the ally Sid in 2, we had the ally Sid in 3, we had the party member in 4, the ally in 5. Oh, Edgar's awesome. Edgar's a great character and a great party member, definitely. No argument there. And then in 5 he was an ally, in 6 he was an ally, in 7 he was a party member. So let's say we have 4 and 7 as party members. In 8 he was a fat guy. In 9 he was... Okay, I gotta be honest, 9 Sid might be one of my favorite Sids. He's up there with 4 Sid. Both of them, for me, the 4 Sid and the 9 Sid are both just awesome. I've often felt that the 9 Sid is kind of channeling the 4 Sid, just with a better mustache. 10 Sid, I actually didn't like 10 Sid, if I'm honest, but that's an ally. And then 10-2 is the same guy. 11 doesn't count. 12 was an adversary. 13, he was a potential character and then turned into adversary. And I think that's everything. So I think... Hey, welcome back, Rosilia. I think Sid was only an adversary in 12 and 13, if I'm remembering. And he was only a party member in 4 and 7. I think I'm getting that right. And I'm not counting like the ancillary works, like Tactics, where he's an incredible badass. And I haven't seen Sid in 14 yet. I need to get back to that game someday. I finished playing it. So I think, based on that, I'm going to have to go ahead and decide whether I like 4 Sid or 9 Sid better. That's a tough one. I'm just going to tie it. I'm going to cheap out and say that I like him as an ally and a party member equally, because 4 Sid and 9 Sid are both fantastic. So what we're about to see, you know, we already talked about the end of Act 1 back in Narsh. This is now the end of Act 2. Balanced down, I'm guessing, Deacon, because Orlando was insane in Tactics, in both versions of Tactics. Well, apparently Sid is an adversary in Type O as well. So this line is actually a bit of a mistranslation. I've actually already talked about this. And this is how I mention how Terra's memory never actually gets restored, or, as we theorized, she never had memories to begin with. Again, everything she is about to flashback on here is not her memories. This is Meduin's memories from his Magicite interacting with her. And this is her telling this story to them as recited to her by Meduin. You with me? Hey, Scorpion's Wrath. Scorpion is still awesome. Get over here! You should just say that every time you hop into chat. I'm a geek. What do you want from me? So now I gotta admit, when I first saw this section, this was among my favorite sections of the game. I'm one of those weird people, and I've said this before, I'm one of those weird people who really likes non-combat sections in RPGs. As my pinnacle example I like to use is actually Paper Mario, the first one on the N64. In other words, every time you would go to the Peach sections, in between chapters, you know, for those of you who've seen what I'm talking about, those sections are awesome, and it was just a nice break from the action. Well, FF6 has actually done this a couple times now. I've actually talked about this as we've been going, but this one, I always remember looking forward to this. Every time I replayed this game, and Lord knows I replayed the crap out of this game on the SNES, every time I'd replay this, I would look forward to this section, because it's just a wonderful little break of the action. There's no combat, 0 combat for this entire section, and yet it's like we actually get the ability to walk around and explore the Esper world, and we get to see the little farms they've got, and they actually bothered to make these little rooms with little extra NPCs you can talk to. And I know this is going to sound like a nostalgia trip, and forgive me, but this is one of the things I miss about some of the older FFs. And when I say older, let me make this clear. I mean, this is going back to like 9 and previous, okay? This is the kind of thing we'd see in the older FFs. Rather than giving us a pre-rendered cutscene and forcing us to go through that, they give us this little area to explore and walk around in, so we have the agency of feeling like we're interacting with the cutscene. Now again, this is linear. I keep getting back to this analogy. This is linear. The only way to progress is to go up there and talk to him, blah, 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 blah. But we don't have to do that immediately. It's not a pre-rendered cutscene. We can wander around like I'm doing right now and just enjoy the scenery. And just look around and be like, oh, that's kind of cool. You know, that's kind of neat. And it is a deception, but it feels like we are more engaged in the cutscene than we are. Being able to talk to these NPCs, again, completely optional too. In FF13, this would all be a cut. I mean, okay, let me give you the exact opposite of this, okay? There's a scene in FF13 where we're on these bikes. It's this racing scene that the mind-controlled Cid is engaging in and starting, and he's like, do the race, you know, and there's this big, flashy, meaningless, drivel cutscene that I actually hate, as I've said before. And so, you know, and then the party shows up. You know this cutscene I'm talking about? Those of you who played FF13 and watched me play it last year, I guess. No, it hasn't been. Well, whatever. That's the kind of thing that this would be in FF13. This would all be fully rendered. We just put the controller down and listen to them talk for however many minutes. I personally prefer this method. And I swear to God, this is not nostalgia. It's just I prefer the feeling, even if it is a lie, of having some interactiveness with what's happening on the screen, as opposed to just putting the controller down and watching a short movie. That is a preference. Okay? Let's make that clear. Yeah, exactly, Clavium. I agree with that mentality, personally. It's what as I talked about during the marathon last year, the very intention of the concept of an overworld in an RPG was made so that the game would feel less linear, to give you that illusion of freedom. Even though there really isn't any. I mean, the overworld, there's very little you can do optional and explore in FF1. But it was there so it felt like you could explore, so it felt like you were actually going to the next town and trying to find the next town and getting lost on the way there and fighting your way there, rather than just, well, going down a corridor. Now, I know it sounds like I'm bashing Earth 13, and I don't want to get it across that way, because as I talked about during the marathon, I actually did enjoy replaying 13. I really did. I mean, it's just not my favorite game. It's not a game that I will probably ever play again, as opposed to this one, which I have replayed 100,000 billion times. Now, in response to Fat Squeed's question, I haven't actually properly played 13, 2, or 3, so I actually can't answer that question. I know the stories of both. I could even dissect the stories of both to you to some extent, but I haven't actually played them, so I don't know, Fat Squeak. I can't answer the question, sorry. So here's Madonna. It would be nice if there was a separate tile set for the Esper Village. That would be awesome. I would like to go ahead and say that in a weird way, I kind of like that it's the same tile set. And let me explain what I mean by that. One of the big, yes, Tristan. One of the big themes of the Espers in general is that they're just people. I mean, yeah, sure, they're monsters and whatever, but for all intents and purposes, these are just people. In fact, as we find out through the course of the game, Espers were people that were created as biological weapons by the Magi to fight each other. So these did literally used to be humans. So I like the idea that the Esper world looks like just another town in a series of caves and whatnot in its own little realm, because it makes sense that they would have this relatively ordinary, normal kind of place, since A, that's what they were used to before they became Espers, and B, again, it gets across that point that these are just people. However, even with that significance being stated, I would actually go out and say that I would have liked it better if they had a different tile set and it looked a little more alien being here. Also, I'm going to give a plus to both gameplay and story for this section, for the reasons I just finished talking about. Interactive cutscene, and this is an awesome section of the game. And we're almost officially going to start overlapping on those pluses. We knew we'd get there eventually, guys. And again, this is another example of what I was just talking about. We could just walk around and talk to these random NPCs and just hear a little bit about their concerns about the world and about what's going to happen if the humans find out they exist. You know, that kind of a thing. And you have to admit, from an Esper's perspective, Espers live in constant fear, really. You ever think about that? The Espers, as I've stated many times, both in past and in present, it's pretty easy and demonstrably easy for an Esper to be controlled, contained, and consumed, right? Either into Magicite or into the Magitech power of the Gestalian Empire. So it's not like Espers are inherently, you know, we will just destroy any humans who come in. They are afraid of humans. Humans outnumber them, and humans know how to work around them, right? There we go. So the feeling of these Espers, you get this really strong impression that they are literally living here in fear, and a couple of the NPCs said something specific about that. In other words, the idea that if any humans find their way here, like Madonna did, that might lead to other humans finding their way here, which might lead to, I don't know, an empire finding their way here and trying to take them away and toss them into glass tubes for the next 17 years, you know? It's an interesting plight. It actually reminds me a little bit of what they do with the mutants in the X-Men series, with a little bit less whininess involved. Sorry, X-Men, but really, man up a bit. And so, in typical Squaresoft fashion, we find out that mating between a person who loves the other person very much involves something ridiculous that usually involves sparkles. I'll point this out in Chrono Trigger too. But in Chrono Trigger and FF6 both, two people create a baby, or rather a baby is created with sparkles. And for some reason Terra's hair is brown here. Two years later, excuse me. I thought it was 1 year later. I actually screwed that up. So, okay, it's been 16 years, not 17. So, okay. I'm not evil. Hashtag not evil. But I mentioned earlier how repetition after a bit just is funny to me. Well, one of the things I used to do whenever I'd play this game is I'd just sit here as this soldier just constantly beats the crap out of this Esper. Not evil. Damn it! You see, I'm not trying to make it like Savage or anything. Actually, what I picture is that he's doing nothing to her. Like, picture his punches are so weak that the Esper's just like, what are you doing? Hey, could someone tell this soldier's grandmother she's trying to work me over? Hey, I think there's a butterfly that's landed on my face, and it's trying to flap its wings against me. And he's so weak that he's just not doing anything to her. And finally, he gets so frustrated. He's like, "Okay, fine, God, just go this way." They never actually explain how Madonna got here, but the implication is actually really clear, and I actually like it. It's the struck by lightning theory, right? Oh, there you go, Chaffin. For those of you who don't know, not aware of the theory, the idea is every now and again someone gets struck by lightning. It's incredibly rare, but statistically speaking, the more people there are, the more terrain people live in, you know, blah, 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 blah. In other words, at some point or other, someone's going to get hit by lightning, okay? There's nothing that really defines that. It's not something you can really work towards. It's just occasionally someone gets hit by lightning. Madonna, in this case, was hit by lightning because, statistically speaking, eventually someone is going to end up finding the entrance to this place and coming in. Remember, the entrance to this world was not sealed prior to this. Remember that? It was just separated. And the magical barrier between the material plane and this plane, they mentioned this as they're talking here, has weakened to the point where it is possible to literally just walk through the gate. And so eventually someone got hit by lightning, aka someone just happened to walk through here, happened to walk through the cave, and happened to walk into this plane, and here you go. This also actually helps explain why the Esper Cave is this nightmarish place of doom 16 years from now. Because the barriers between the two have weakened so much that literally magic, just raw magic, has been spilling out of the Esper realm into the surrounding terrain. That also explains why the floating continent is the Dungeon of Doom, by the way, because it's the same thing. All of that magical energy had just been seeping into that one little island for forever, for years and years, and turning it and warping it and distorting it until we have, the nightmarish place that the cave is, and the nightmarish dungeon that the floating continent is. Make sense? Also, I'm sorry, Razulia. I will never play a rogue again in DAI, that's for damn sure. Riches to any man who captures an Esper. So I've said this before and I'll say this again. Gestalt is the most evil bastard in this game. Would anyone like to contest me on that? I mean, really. Gestalt is just a freaking... Kefka at least has an excuse and is basically broken. And I've talked about Kefka already, and we'll talk about him again in the future. Gestalt is just a greedy, selfish bastard who doesn't care about how much he wrecks the world in his quest to contain it. As Kay mentioned yesterday, Gestalt is practically an embodiment of greed. Mine. I want more, and more, and more. And it's kind of disgusting, really. And in case you really don't get the point, well, I'll point out something that's going to happen in a bit here. So this is when they erect the barrier, or rather when they're going to erect the barrier. Yeah, Kefka at least feels something, too. Gestalt is just more. Yeah, exactly, and I want it now. I don't want to do it properly, like Revan would. I want it now, like Malik would. So he's stupid, and evil, and selfish, and greedy. Gestalt's just a bastard. I mean, really. Now, this scene is a little poorly translated, and it seems like it kind of comes out of nowhere in the English version. And yeah, I agree, Titans. That is very likely what the problem was for me. Basically, the implication here is supposed to be a little less blatant. This guy shouldn't just come out of absolutely nowhere and say, she's the one who's the problem. And it should have been more along the lines of him implying in a very passive-aggressive manner that because she found the entrance, others found the entrance, so she is responsible, even though she didn't directly lead them here. Which makes a lot more sense for that to get to Madonna and cause her to try and flee. Because see, the difference between the two versions is, in this version, she's like, oh no, they'll never accept me here because they think I led them here, versus the original intent and the GBA intent, where it's more like, me being here is endangering these people, I need to leave, which I think is a much more appropriate motivation for Madonna here. That fool. This line makes no sense in context. Every now and again there's a line that literally just doesn't fit the surrounding dialogue. No offense to Woolsey. Really, none. He does, in all honesty, have my respect. But every now and again there's a line that just does not fit in the dialogue. So here's Emperor Gestalt. Now his lines in this section, in the GBA section, are just plain disgustingly cruel. In the SNES version, it sounds like he's a lot more neutral. In the GBA version, it's a lot more clear that he is just a bastard. Basically, I'll just go ahead and tell you what happens here, especially in the original version. He finds a human girl, takes Terra. In other words, in the English version, it looks like she gave him Terra to take care of her. In the original version, in the GBA version, Gestalt steals the child, and Madonna's like, no, please don't take my baby. And Gestalt says, oh, so she's half and half. Oh, this will be fantastic. Thank you very much for your assistance in helping me build my Empire of Doom. And then he walks away, and she tries to stop him. He walks over and stabs her in the gut. That's what happens right there. Keep in mind, this is a normal human woman that he just gutted because she happened to be there. Gestalt is a freaking bastard. I wonder too, actually, Samurai. I think in all honesty, I think FF5 was a game built for Wolseley to translate. And I mean that sincerely. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of nuances and subtlety to the game, but Wolseley is really good at that kind of adding flavor to a text. You know what I mean? As I've said before, half of the reason why Kefka has reached the popularity in the West, emphasis, is because of how Wolseley translated him. Because again, in the East, in the original translation, Kefka is just a crude, disgusting person who cusses a lot, who, is very rude and inappropriate and just kind of gross. They turned him into the maniacal, screaming, ha ha ha, insane clown of maniacalness because of this translation, and it's been carried that way ever since. And I know at some point, a certain individual of my viewers is going to watch this and he's going to roll his eyes at me. But to make this clear, I'm not saying the English version and the Wolseley version is better. I'm just saying I prefer it. It is, because that's the thing, it is different. It is decisively different between the Japanese Kefka and the English Kefka. You know what I mean? Very distinct difference between the two. And I happen to prefer the English one. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the Japanese one. I actually know several people, including the gentleman I just mentioned, who prefer the original Japanese impersonation of just the crude, disgusting human being. The apathetic thing. Anyways, so yes, this is an awesome moment. Like I said, this is the end of Season 2. Season 2 ends rather interestingly, doesn't it? It ends with kind of a red wedding moment, with him gutting a woman and stealing her baby. And then at the same time, it ends on a bit of a high note. Actually, it ends on a significant high note. Terra has returned to the party and has completed the first part of her character arc. The beginnings of acceptance of what she is. And I stress, the beginning. She is still not accepted who she is. That won't happen until the World of Ruin. But this is them discussing exactly how the Espers were found, and the fact that now that we've had, all of Season 2 has been all about character development and setting development. It's been all about the Espers, it's been all about magicite, it's all about magic. We have officially reached the point where we know what's happening. We understand the stakes. We understand more about the people involved in the stakes. Now it is time to take the fight to the enemy. This is Season 3. And the more I keep going with this season thing that Baronessa started, the more I think it makes perfect sense. Because this is a classic formula. Season 1, establishment. Season 2, depth. Season 3, threat. And then we'll get to Season 4, which we'll talk about when we get there. As an aside, I like that they explain how to use the airship. My reasoning? This had never been done before. Right here. Excuse me. I'm not sure yet, Titans. We'll see when we get there. But every airship in every FF and every other game had been a top-down thing. You've played FF4 and 3 and 2 and 1 and 5, right? This was brand new. Mode 7 airship, and it was awesome! This was so awesome! I still, to this day, love just flying around the world of Final Fantasy VI. Hands up, if anybody out there just loves doing what I'm doing right now, just flying around and being like, yeah! And this is that fake freedom in a nutshell, by the way. Because again, in order to progress the plot, I have to go to Narsh, and I have to talk to them, and then I have to come back down to the base here, and all that fun stuff. But I don't care, because I can just be like, yeah! Let's do it! Woo! Yeah! I love this! As an aside, God, I love this. Okay, I gotta tell an anecdote. When this game first came out, Dad and Kim were watching me play it, and I got in the airship, and they were just kind of idly watching, and they were completely pulled out of it. Dad's sort of a gamer. He's more of an old school gamer, if you know what I mean. Um, and Kim was never into games except for like mahjong, but that that doesn't really count. But both of them saw this and were like, "Can we?" And I handed the controller, and both Dad and Kim just started doing this, just flying around, and they just thought it was so cool that you could just fly around the world like this, and being like, "Yeah, yeah!" It was just lots of fun watching the two of them fly around the overworld map, just having fun with it. If I can explain though, hey Prog, I feel like there are three big reasons why this is so much fun, and why this is my favorite airship, gameplay-wise, mechanic-wise, in the FF series. Because FF7 and 8 and 9 had the same basic idea, but in 7 it was a little slower, and there were a few pop-in problems with the world, which kind of pulled me out of it. If you've played FF7 and really zoomed around, I think you know what I'm talking about. Occasionally, chunks of the world would just pop in as they tried to do that morphing into a sphere thing. In FF8, the Ragnarok was slow, and in FF9, both the airships were just kind of. I mean, the Hildegard was okay, but the Invincible just felt like I was hovering around on a balloon. It felt like I was doing this right here. None of them had the feeling of this, and I think it comes down to a couple things. Like I said, speed. Someone in chat mentioned that a little ago. We can zoom around in the Blackjack and in the Falcon. You can just race. I mean, I've already looped the world. Since I started this sentence, I have looped the world. No joke. And there we go. And so you have this really fast, awesome. So that's point one. Point two, you actually have a lot of controls here. So left and right, obviously. If you hold down R or L, you go left and right even faster, so you can actually do this thing and really zoom it around. And you've got the Y button if you want to do something precise. So what I actually tend to do most often is, I want to go to Albrook. So I'm going to zoom down to Albrook and then land, right? Bam, just like that. Zoom around, up, bam, right? Very precise, and still having that speed and precision to bam, just like that. So I think that's one of the reasons why it feels so much more like it has better flow, for lack of a better term. So that's the second reason I feel like this one works. Now the third reason, I don't really have a good reason for the third reason, but I think it's just the fact that this is probably my favorite Mode 7 effect in FF6. There's been several Mode 7 effects, but most of them have been so far zoomed in that it usually looks kind of like this. And it loses some of the impact when you're seeing blurry pixels flying by. But when you can do this and pull it out and you can actually see the land masses blowing by you, I love that. Oh, and you know what, Prog, thank you for that. You just gave me another reason. I mentioned this earlier. I mentioned this when we were talking about explore points and the design of an overworld. This is like in the second or third video I did on this section. In FF6, when you get the airship, you can go anywhere. Okay, in FF3, in FF4, in FF5, every game prior to this one, and several of the ones after this one, you can't actually go anywhere. Or, excuse me, you can't actually go everywhere. They do this incremental thing. Well, now you have this thing, so you can go to these areas. And then later on, you get this thing, so you can go to these areas, and so forth and so on. Even if FF7 did this, once you get the high wind, which is way late in the game, by the way, you still can't go everywhere. You still need the chocobos to get to a few places. There's still some places you have to hoof it to, etc., etc. Oh, shoot. In FF6, the moment you get both airships, you can go anywhere in the entire game. In the World of Balance, I could go to literally any location in the entire World of Balance right now. Any of them. Just bam. When you get to the airship in World of Ruin, like Jovan points out, you can literally get the airship in the World of Ruin and go straight to Kefka's Tower. You can go anywhere. It is a true freedom point, as I like to call those. It is a true freedom point. I could just go here and fight in Tangiers if I felt like it, I could go straight to Thamasa. They'll even talk about how I shouldn't be here. Like, here, I'll demonstrate. This is so cool. This is so cool. I don't think so, Psychotic, but I could be wrong about that. So, see, everyone just is like, they refuse to talk to you, basically. They're like, no. They're like, who is this random stranger? I've never seen you before. They actually have different dialogue in Thamasa, because you're not supposed to be here yet. Who might you be? Hey, Straga. This is cool. I'm sorry. This is good game design. Having a true freedom point. Like, check this out. He charges me 1,500 GP. 1,500. Look at that. Love it. So this is a true freedom point. Now, I'm trying to... Prog mentioned something that I wanted to share. Or was it Javan? Someone else said it. Shoot, one of you guys mentioned something, and I was going to mention it as another bonus to why I love the airship in this game versus the other FFs. I can't remember what it was. Shoot. Okay, let me look at chat here for a second. Because we were talking about F6 flying mounts. You have access to the world. What was mine? Sure. I can't remember. It was something. Was it about 7? I'm gonna think about this because there was another reason why this is awesome. Yet another reason. I'm trying to remember what the hell it was. I can't remember. Whatever. If it comes to me, I'll mention it. But all of these, I think, are a reason why this gets a huge gameplay bonus. Because this is awesome. And we have officially started looping over the text there. You're right, Javan. I think flying around the world some more is a good idea. Am I the only one who does this, by the way? You know, I don't just go straight. I tend to be like up and down and doing the circle things like this. Just I used to come up with games. I am such a loser. I used to come up with games like, okay, stay in the water. Stay in the water. You can't. The point is you can't stop holding A, but you can't hit landmass. If you hit landmass, you crash. So you got to like do this, and you can't just go across the ocean. That's too easy. Ugh, there we go. Okay, so you got to like, you got to try and follow the coast as close as you can here. Oh, yeah. So I just crashed right there, for example. Same game except different. Follow the landmass. So you can't hit. Well, okay, you can hit rivers, but so then we got to follow the landmass like this. No. Okay, I'm done. It was about the total freedom point. Final Fantasy Flight Simulator. I'd buy it. If they ever do a proper 3D remake, etc., they better keep the damn airship pretty much just like this. I mean, they really better do that, or I am going to pitch a fit. If they pull an FF like 7 or 9, that's at least acceptable. If they pull an FF10, I am going to go straight to Squaresoft's headquarters and punch the crap out of every machine in there to break them or something. I don't know. Something. Damn it. You don't take away my airship. Come on. That's also true, Sophie. There's a lot of stuff you can actually do at this point in time. For those of you who haven't gotten the Heroes Ring yet, you can go up and get the Heroes Ring. There's actually quite a few Espers that have suddenly become knowledgeable. Like, this is the point in time you can get the Espers from the auction house. You can also get the one from Zen up here, which I'm not going to do because I'm going to get it later in the World of Ruin when it's much cheaper. You can do a bunch of stuff on the Veld. What else can you do? You can do the Antinger thing. What else? That would be amusing, Tristan. I would be totally okay with that, little Billy. I'm one of those weird people who actually likes the gyroscope aiming in the 3DS version. As I was trying to show off during Ocarina of Time, it's actually really good and precise, at least on the new 3DS, with the aiming, with the bow and whatnot. And yeah, we've just unlocked a bunch of I can go get Mog right now. I mean, I could advance the plot at Narsh, but I could also get Mog, and then I could go get him a bunch of dances and really check him out. This is another thing I wanted to show off. There's nothing wrong with that at all, Psychotic. So, notice how this place is completely abandoned and yet not trashed. This is just tying into my earlier point I was mentioning about how the Empire never actually came here. Oh no, Titans, no, the game's capped. We're gonna get a lot of negatives from this point on because now, anyways, but so all the returners are now here. I can't remember. I can't remember what the final point was. But anyways, long story short, the airship is an awesome addition to FF6, and it is my favorite airship mechanic, possibly in any game ever. There's one other game that challenges that, and you're probably going to laugh at me for this. Dragon Quest VIII. Dragon Quest VIII was much slower. However, one thing Dragon Quest VIII did that was really, really cool was the overworld map was just a render of the actual areas you'd be walking through. And if you don't understand what I mean by that, it was kind of the Secret of Mana thing. If you look down, you would see the actual, like the terrain looks like it will look when you land. You know, obviously it's a smaller version of it and less rendered, but it's still there. You can still see the path you'll be going along up that mountain. You can still see the buildings over there next to the town, you know, that kind of a thing. And so it was really cool actually being able to look down and basically, you know, for example, seeing Narsh down there. This leads me to my final point. If they did this in full 3D awesome, I would absolutely love it if they did the Dragon Quest VIII thing. If, in other words, you know, let's say I'm zooming along. Yeah, Flamey was pretty similar to that too. Again, the Secret of Mana effect. Imagine if you're flying along and you look down here, instead of seeing that little thing right there that indicates this is Narsh, imagine if you looked down and you saw Narsh built into the mountains. And obviously it's just a tiny little thing, you know, again, just like Secret of Mana, just like Dragon Quest VIII. But you can see them down there and it's like, hey, look, there's Narsh. Tell me that wouldn't be awesome in a proper remake of this game. Now, I mean, in some cases you can, but again, like, see, instead of seeing a bunch of little hatched villages, rather, imagine seeing the outline of that wall that surrounds South Figaro, you know, and seeing the dock up here. Imagine going over here and seeing a pathway that kind of goes from here up to here for Mount Colts, you know. Tell me that wouldn't be cool. You know, Nikia being this kind of sprawling docking city, that kind of a thing. Anyways, let's go ahead and zip straight to Narsh, because I got a couple other things to do. I don't know, Night Dawn. Wow, psychotic. That is possible. Hey, Kay, I was just referencing you earlier. So like I said, it is now Season 3. We know what the threat is. We know the scope and the stakes. We know the Empire knows about... We know about Magicite, but our advantage has been blown because the Empire knows about Magicite too. We are going to try and actually take the fight straight to the Empire. We are going to try and use the resources of Narsh, the manpower of the Returners, you know, as foot soldiers, and the Espers to back us up in order to make a full tilt actual military assault on Vector. Most believably, Fat Squeak? Ooh, that's a tough one. Honestly, I like how Chrono Trigger does it, but there are some other ones that do it better. FF9 does it very well, I think. Lindblom always felt like a nation to me. Alexandria always felt like a nation to me. Even though if you're looking at them on the overworld map, they look like these dinky little buildings. The implication, especially before you get the airship, is very clearly there. And there's a lot of sense of scope and scale that helps flesh them out. You know what I mean? I think I'd probably give it to FF9 as the best one to do that, in my opinion. Now, the nice thing about this section, this again shows how Terra's character has moved throughout the course of the game until this point. Again, remember, Terra hasn't remembered anything yet. Oh yeah, FF12 had some issues for me, but I feel like what they do with Arcadia was pretty much perfect. In some cases, it felt a little bit silly, but for the most part, FF12 did it very well as well. Thank you for reminding me that I hadn't thought about that. Arcadia felt pretty much as big as it was, even though we only actually explore a very small chunk of it. And so did Dalmasca. So Terra has pretty much completed her story arc. You know, she had, or excuse me, her first story arc again, because she's still got more story arc to go. But despite her lack of memory, she has finally started to craft an identity, the idea of this half-human, half-Esper hybrid. Forgive me for bringing Star Trek into this, but I feel like this is the best hybrid stories tend to be done when the individual embraces their hybrid nature and does not try to be a human or be an Esper. You know, in other words, rather than trying to identify as either, they function as the individual in between. Spock is probably the definitive example of this, but Seven over on Voyager is another excellent example of this. The woman who was basically herself, not a human, not a Borg, herself. And this is what Terra is starting to accept, that she is this hybrid, and so she becomes, you know, she agrees to this whole mission because she believes that kind of a bond between the two can actually function. There's also an implication in the original text of this game. Hey Titans, what happened to your laptop? I mean, I'm glad to see you back, man. But what happened? There's an implication here that the idea is we're not actually going to Vector to conquer it. We're going there to force a settlement. In other words, the idea that being, instead of just killing all the Imperial soldiers, we're going to walk in with this overwhelming power of, you know, again, all the massive resources of Narsh, all the massive, the power of the Espers, and the Returners guiding and directing both in terms of manpower in order to force the Empire to halt. That's the goal. And I mention this because that's one of the reasons why when we get to Vector in the next section of the game, everyone is so stunned that it's on fire and burned and crushed and so many people are dead. Because that wasn't the goal. That wasn't actually what we were trying to do. We weren't trying to kill Vector. We were trying to force a ceasefire as opposed to, you know, just, we're just going to kill you all. Hi, Bregman. Hugs. Hugs and other things. You know, I'd never heard of Pink Sparkle Dust or whatever her name was until you linked me that or you mentioned it. So thanks, Bregman, for reducing the number of brain cells I had. Me too, Kay. I, of course, have not seen her yet, so please don't spoil. Oh, gotcha, Titans. Well, congrats, man. Congrats on getting it back. Okay, so yeah, we're getting Mog here. Because, of course, we're freaking getting Mog. Because Mog's awesome. As I said before, this is the only Mog. Feel free to correct me if I'm missing something. But to my knowledge, this is the only Mog ever who is actually a playable character. We have seen Mog since FF3. Yes, they will, Wraith. Every one of these is actually already been uploaded to YouTube. It just hasn't gone live yet. But I've been making sure that they are there, so they will be there for the future. Absolutely. This is definitely a main feature for me, and something that is equivalent to a lore run. So, where was I? So yeah, this is the only Mog we ever actually get to be, you know, and actually play as. But and it's funny because Mog's been in the game since FF3 was the first time. Actually, I think, now that I think about it, that's not true. I don't think Mog was in 3. Mog was in 5, wasn't he? Moogles were in 3, and then they skipped 4, and then Moogles were in 5, and Mog was in 5. And then just out of nowhere, Mog became a main character, or a playable character, I should say. And then he was never a playable character again. Don't give me that technically of FF7. That doesn't count. He was not actually playable in FF7. Don't lie to me. I was a kid, but now I'm a Mog. Were there Moogles in 8? I can't actually remember. Were there Moogles in 8? No, you cannot, Samurai. I know that technically you're even going to give, and it doesn't count. Now I'm thinking about it, because Mog was in 9. Mog was actually a significant NPC in 9, and relevant to several strong story points, both with Aiko and with Kuja. And then in 10, there weren't Moogles in 10, were there? No, Mog was the little one that followed around Aiko in 9. Hey, Brother Box. And so I don't think there were Moogles in 10. Or 10 too. I mean, there was the Moogle suits, and Moogles were a thing, but... Yeah, I can't think of anything else. And then there was FF 12, which had lots of Moogles, but I don't remember there being a Mog in 12. Now I'm thinking about this. Oh, whatever. Point being, this is the best Mog. I'm sorry, it is. So, okay, this is funny. I'm an idiot. Don't move or this one's dust. Now, I didn't know what to do here. So I remember me and Vincent are playing this game for the first time, and we're like, huh, no, huh, maybe, and now, obviously, we didn't just keep moving forward, but we couldn't figure out that what you have to do is you have to just stop controlling for like 10 seconds. Here, watch. Bam. That's all you had to do, but we kept moving. We kept running around trying to figure out how to make this advance, and all we had to do is stop moving. He even says, don't move. Alright, so there's no question of this choice here. I'm going to get Mog instead of a frickin' golden hairpin. I don't need another golden hairpin. This is also when we find out that Mog can talk, making him one of the rare Moogles in this particular thing. He is a human-loving, fast-talking, street-smart, slam-dancing Moogle. Hang on, I need to check something really quick. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and rename Mog here. There we go, perfect. Golden Hairpin reduces the mana cost of spells by half. It is actually one of the best accessories in the game. Right up there with the Genji Glove, the Offering, the Gem Box, and the Economizer. But it's not worth Mog. I mean, seriously. Now, this is hilarious. This guy, he's like so pissed off that he's like, screw it! And he takes his golden hairpin with him. Not the best revenge plot I've ever seen, if I'm being honest. And here's Tritalk. We can't actually do anything with him yet. Or Velagalaga. For anyone curious, yes, Moogles are in fact in Primus. Nobody's encountered them yet, but they're there. So, we now have Mog. Mog is a C-list character. I don't know, Titans. I mean, you can get Mog later, but I mean, really? You're hilarious, Javan. You know what? Hang on. I'm going to try and get rid of some of the white noise of this damn laptop. So I'm going to play Sonic Generations really quick. And you're going to be confused by why I'm doing that. There's a bug in this laptop, or a bad design. Basically, the engine, the cooling engine just goes whenever it's not using its hardware properly. I know that sounds weird, but there it is, offline. And so whenever it's not actually using its video card, it's like, hey, you know, oh God, I gotta run the fan, and that's probably why a lot of the white noise you guys are hearing right now. So I gotta actually fire up a game that will use the 3D card, so that it will then shut the hell up about it. Yeah, I know, it's bizarre. I've tried several things to fix it, and honestly, just running a game in the background is the easiest fix I've ever found. I don't know, Deutsch. Well, I mean, I actually know exactly where they are, Deutsch, but you're gonna have to, well, the parties, plural, are gonna have to find them. Someday. Now, Season 3, it's debatable when Season 3 ends. We know when Season 3 begins. We've already defined that. Yeah, let's mute this so you guys don't hear it. There we go. Is that going to do it? I still hear the fan. Yeah, we're having issues, Omni. We'll get there. We'll get there. Trust me. I don't have an ETA, don't ask. If I had an ETA, I'd tell you. Oh, but I'm not even going to find anything out till like next week. Maybe not even then. So we might have to live with this setup for a while. Sorry. Nothing I can do it. Well, you'd be fine, Bragwin. No. Hey, here's a water golem. Okay, so hopefully that'll trigger the fan soon. Do I need like another game? Maybe this one isn't significant enough on the hardware. Okay, fine. Let's start Rocket League. That should be good enough. And now we're gonna play Rocket League while playing FF6 because I am insane. No, I'm kidding. We're not gonna do that. It's debatable when Season 3 ends, because Season 3 is the scope of the threat, but it's also kind of the we didn't realize how bad things really were season. I have my own personal theories on when Season 3 ends, and I'll be mentioning them when we get there. As ever, I'm curious what you guys think. Okay, there we go. I'm running a 3D game. Shut up about the fan. I'm glad you liked it, Omni. A lot. It is a fantastic game, and I like people enjoying it. It's still not. It's still fanning. I have Rocket League playing. Why are you doing this? Why? Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna get as far away from the computer as I can, which is not that far because I'm on a cable here. There we go. This is as far away as I can get, guys. I'm sorry. Hopefully the fan will shut up in a minute. Stupid thing. Anyways, back to the game. So yeah, if you guys have any theories about when Season 3 ends, I'm totally hearing them. I will obviously be giving my thoughts on that when we get there. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to run around with Mog for a bit, because Mog is love, and Mog is life. And we will become one with the Mog very soon. Alright, hands up. How many of you out there had friends or otherwise people who were kind of into the game who kept referring to Mogs as the species? And I'm raising my hand because I knew several people who kept referring to the species of creatures as Mogs. By the way, that ghost guy from Zozo, he's here now, so he can explain about espers and magicites. That's kind of a neat little thing that they tossed him in there. But he only showed up when magicite shows up, so that's kind of cool. We've been dividing FF6 into seasons, Bragwin. Basically major story arcs. Baronessa actually started the seasons things. I was calling it chapters. You know, we had the prologue, and then we had Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, and now we are on Chapter 3, or Act 3, if you prefer that. But Baronessa started using the seasons things, and I liked that idea, so we started doing that instead. Alright, so we're going to start going for what is eventually going to be one of my endgame parties, which is this one right here. These are 4 of my favorite characters to play as. Mog, because I usually actually turn Mog into a melee of Doom, because spears can be awesome. But in all honesty, Mog gets my party slot in almost all of my endgame things because of a thing called Moogle Charm. Don't look at me that way, you do it too. You do it too. Setzer is just one of my favorite characters in general. I like his character arc. I think he looks cool. I happen to be a fan of Tetsuya Nomura's style. I didn't know it at the time because I didn't realize Setzer was the only character who was designed by him. But, you know, I actually like his character, so I usually turn him into my Omni Mage. He's usually the guy I turn into just this Doom Ultra Mage, you know, he gets priority on all the espers, priority on all the spells, and I keep him equipped with Meduin and later Tritok, so his magic power can be boosted to the point where he's useful. Terra, I shouldn't have to explain why Terra, I mean really, I should not have to explain why Terra's in my party, and I really should not have to explain why Mr. Overpowered, the overpoweredness is usually in my party in an endgame thing. And then my second party is usually headed up by actually this exact setup right here. These four right here, with Sabin and Gao kind of leading the pack, so to speak. Locke can be turned into a pretty mean melee, but I don't always do that. And Cyan, he's alright. He's usually a bruiser, so I usually turn him into a bruiser. When I'm playing normally, I usually don't do the imp gear. I don't even remember where to get all the pieces anymore. I remember where to get one of them, the one off the Tyrannosaurus Rexes, the Partisan, but I don't remember where all the others are off the top of my head. So, we're about to give another plus to the gameplay. Seriously. First of all, switching party members is quick and easy. You talk to them, they say one line, nothing significant, just one quick line, and bamf, change party members. And you can say no, in case you just want to talk to them and see what they have to say. And then, you go up here and it's like, hey, I want to equip all the party members not in my party. I want to equip all the party members, period. I don't want to do anything. This right here, this is something every FF game, every RPG that has more party members than you can have in your party at once should have as a feature. This is an awesome feature, and in all honesty, there's only two other games I can think of right off the top of my head that had something similar. One's Chrono Trigger, and one is, believe it or not, FF8. In FF8, for those of you not aware, you can basically switch your junctions because there was no equipment for all intents and purposes. And so you could just switch junctions between whoever you had. And they actually had some good convenience features in 8 where you could, props to 8 for this. Whenever there was a forced party change, the game would say, would you like to swap your junctions out so that the party you're playing as now will be functional? Because there's no reason to have more than 3 junction setups in 8 at any given point in time. Because you can always swap them, right? So that was a good feature. Props to 8. But this right here is an excellent, excellent feature, and will basically be a feature in the game from now on with one break henceforth. And there we go, another plus. We're just going to keep letting the pluses go until they go off the screen. I just want to see what it looks like. This is the other reason that feature is so awesome. It's not just equipment, it's relics, and it's espers. It's basically everything. Now there are a couple of catches. It will not unequip relics off of Umaro. And I think that's actually it, now that I think about it. It will not unequip relics off of Umaro. So anything you put onto Umaro, you have to be aware that it's just going to stick on Umaro, even if you talk to that guy. By the way, how many of you out there say Umaro? How many of you out there say Umaro? I'm just curious, because I've heard lots and lots of pronunciations over the years of all these many characters. Okay, so, like I said, we're going to start setting these 4 up as my main party, so he's going to go ahead and get the earrings and one of the running shoes. He's going to get the hero ring and the other running shoes. He's going to get the sprint shoes and nothing, because eventually he's going to have the Moogle charm. We're going to go ahead and set up a Terra as a melee. She's actually a really good individual to be a melee character, because she, as I've said before, Terra, Edgar, Locke, and Celes are the 4 characters who can equip the best weapons in the game, and so all 4 of them are actually very viable, to Umaro, really? Umaro, that's even worse. So all 4 of them are viable to be turned into melee characters of Doom. In fact, Edgar, Terra, Celes, and Locke, without doing some really significant stat editing with espers, will always be your best melee characters. More than Sabin, more than Mog, more than Umaro, more than Cyan, etc. Now, we also want to set up our espers. So you get Meduin right off the bat. And like I said, we're going to set you up as a melee. So you're going to get Bismarck, because she gets strength up. Umaro? No, excuse me, Umaro. That's terrible. I'm not even going to comment on that, Braywin. I mean, no offense to you at all. It's just that guy is not worthy of my attention. I think we'll go ahead and set him up on that. Yeah. Now, Edgar, unfortunately, I don't think I have any of the espers I want for him yet. And I am correct, so we'll go ahead and set him up on that. Hang on. There. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Now, the first thing we're going to do... I agree, Baronessa. Sabin really should be blitzing every turn. There is literally no reason not to blitz every turn unless he can't do it. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean, he is a fantastic blitzer. His blitzes will always do more damage than his melee damage, unless you specifically set him up to be a melee character, which involves giving him Espers, which boost his strength for a while, and setting him up with a dual-wield Tiger Claw build, which I have done. So this is one of my favorite sections to start getting dances. You can get 3 of them right here. Fun fact, I used to be an idiot when I was younger and would forget that I shouldn't dance. Like, if I dance here with, what is it, Dusk Requiem, I will then, you know, lose the terrain. The terrain will change, and then I won't learn the grass terrain, and I'm like, oops. There's grass. Grass is actually one of my favorite dances. Grass, forest, and water are almost always my go-tos for when I actually use dances. I'm curious which dances you guys like. Too true, Tristan. We've all been there, right? Also, Kay, you're a horrible human being. Teach us how to blitz. Yeah, Forest is a really useful dance. It's got a nice heal, it's got a decent AoE, and it's got a decent single target. Now, I'm debating, because now we have to talk about Mog. Now, I mentioned Mog is a C-list character. He has very, very little character development. In all honesty, he basically only has 2 scenes in the entire game of character development. He's right down there with, like... Hell, he's actually below Strago and Realm in terms of character development. He's down there with, like, Umaro and Gogo in terms of character development. And that is a damn shame, because he's an awesome character. Yep, right here. But he also... I mean, he is very, very useful, and it's funny, for someone who has so little character, to be used as often as I use him. Again, pretty much just because of the Moogle charm. So I'm not going to talk about his story stuff yet, because we haven't actually hit his character development yet. But what I will talk about is his gameplay, the dance. Now, I'm one of those really weird people who likes some RNG in my combat. Just some. I don't like RNG on top of RNG on top of RNG on top of RNG. I've actually given examples of quad RNG before. And they're stupid. But a little bit of RNG. Like, for example, when I designed the Geomancer for Primus, the original intent was when you used... Geomancy, it would randomly select one of the powers that could happen in that area, which, if you're paying attention, is actually kind of similar to Dance, except for the losing control thing. You could just randomly do a mountainous attack, or randomly do a desert attack, that kind of a thing. I like that. I know not everyone likes that. So I think this is going to be one of those pluses and minuses that's going to even itself out, because on the one hand, I do like the random nature of dances, and it encourages you to expand a little bit and explore and just be like, well, let's see what happens when I do this kind of a dance. And so that's kind of a neat, and the dances themselves can actually be quite powerful. You lose control of Mog for the duration, which can be disastrous if you don't know what you're doing. Whoops, I'm going the wrong way. But only if you don't know what you're doing, and that is kind of the trick. A first-time player is probably going to screw up several times with Dance, and to be completely blunt, I actually have also done that, where I have basically screwed myself over by using the wrong dance and ended up healing the enemy or whatever. Oh, hey, a Hades Gigas. Yeah, this is the guy I was talking about earlier. Yeah, I think I can kill you now without fear now. Let's find out. However, there is a really big negative to Dance. Like a really big negative. Ow. That's not it. The really big negative is the fact that you can fail at dancing. There's actually a formula for exactly how you fail at dancing. I'm not going to recite it here. It doesn't matter that much. It actually, over time, as you go throughout the game, that chance of failure goes down. And if you dance on a terrain type that you are already on, like for example, if I did a water dance in a water area, it's never going to fail. But if I do a water dance in a, yeah, Ignor's OP, I'm telling you. If I did a water dance in for example, a desert area like this, it has a chance to fail. And that kind of sucks, to be blunt. So that irritates the snot out of me. That is so that's why it is a significant positive, because I like the dance mechanic, and a significant negative, because it has that chance of failure. I don't like that at all. What am I missing, other than water? I did that. Let's go ahead and do... Oh, no, I gotta do this over here. That's right, that's how I do this. So for anybody curious, this is my preferred method of doing water. There are several ways to do it overall. Well, okay, I should rephrase that. There's actually two ways to get the water dance. The water dance you can only get in the World of Balance. It's impossible to get in the World of Ruin. You can only get the snow dance in the World of Ruin. It is impossible to get in the World of Balance. Make sure I'm getting everything here. Water, snow. Yep, okay, we're good. Hey, Mugwump. When I say by method, though, is you can... Where you park the airship and how you do your route kind of varies. So what I like to do is I like to park the airship right where I'm going to get out of the waterfall. And then just go through the rest of the route normally on foot, as I will showcase to you shortly. Now, the funny thing is that this is one of those things that I like. The water dance and the snow dance are both arguably the strongest dances in terms of raw stats. Both of them, if you just paid attention, are also the ones you can miss, and the ones that you can that are hardest to get. You have to actually work at getting them. You don't just get them playing the game normally, right? All the other ones, there's plenty of opportunities and circumstances where you can get, you can fight in the desert, or you can fight in the forest, or you can find the plains, etc., etc. But these two dances you have to really go out of your way to get, and they're the strongest and blah, blah, blah. I like it, though, because it's that rewarding exploration thing all over again. It's the idea of, if you think about it, I mean, there are clues there. It's not a completely obtuse thing, right? There are hints that there are other dances, because if you look at the dance menu, like I just did a minute ago, you see there are holes there. And you can think about it, well, what other terrain types are there to have combat in? And if you think about it, you could realize, well, there is actually a water-type terrain. There's the Leet River, which is one of the methods, and there's the Serpent's Trench, which is the other method. So you could actually think, oh, well, how the heck am I going to go through the Serpent's Trench and actually get back to my airship? And then you actually start thinking about it and trying to puzzle it together. And again, it's that rewarding you for this effort that you put into this. Now, I will freely admit I did not figure this out myself the first time I played this. I figured it out partially. What happened is Vincent was the one who basically flat out told me, there's a water dance, but I don't know how to get it because, I don't know how to get back to the airship from the Serpent's Trench. So finally, what I did is I just set up a save in the Veld and said screw it, and just went through the trench and started figuring out, trying to figure out what was going on. And then I was like, aha, wait a minute, there's a bridge here that I didn't know was here, and that's how I discovered the route. Nowadays, I know that that you can do something else on top of that to make that even better, aka a chocobo, but we'll go to that in a second. I really should have guessed the chocobo thing if I had actually had the availability of playing FF3 on the NES before this, which obviously I didn't. For those of you not aware, there was actually a quest in FF3 and in FF5, actually, both of them, to circle the globe on a chocobo. And if that had been something I was aware of, which I was not when I first played this game, because I hadn't played any of the Japanese ones yet, then I might have actually put that together. But yeah. Now, Mug is cool looking, Javan. That's what that is. Mog has the cool buff on. And now I'm going to steal all of Berigwin's stew. No. Yeah, by the way, if I haven't mentioned this before, the blind stat literally does nothing. It is literally bugged to absolutely do nothing. Zero effect on anything. So yeah, I think that evens out. Dance evens out. Mog, I would give, if they ever do a proper remake of this game, and if I ever conquer the world and then can go and say, here's how you should do a proper remake of this game, one of the first things I'm going to say is, you know, I'd really like it if you flesh out a couple of the characters a little bit more. They don't really have enough screen time and enough character time, really, to function for them, you know. And again, Mog, Umaro, Gogo are pretty much at the top of that list, because all three of them have next to no character development. And yeah, it is bugged because of the physical evasion bug. It's actually a byproduct of another bug. It actually has nothing to do with its own self, for lack of a better term. So, fun fact, if you get on this ferry with your airship over in the Veldt, you're screwed. It is actually possible to get back from that, but your trip has just gone from lengthy to, oh god, kill me, in order to get back. You have to traverse half the world, technically twice, in order to get back. So don't do that. For a record, I am speaking from experience on that one. So yeah, this is how you get back quickly and easily. There aren't that many bugs in 6, not really. Not compared to certain other games. Including some modern ones. When I first did that, like I was talking from experience, I actually wasn't sure I could get back, and I almost just reset the game, and I was like, no, I'll just roam for a bit, try and figure it out. And you can actually get back. Basically, you have to go all the way back through Colts again, then go up to the Return to Hideout, then go ahead and, you know, blah blah. As an aside, I know I'm a total loser geek, etc., but every time I do this, I just picture the Phantom Train up there, and then just suddenly this giant chocobo runs through. So anyways. No, Mugwump. There's actually something else that does that in 6. It's called Lures. You're hilarious, Bragman. And see, we're right on the airship, so bamf. And we're done. Now, there are a few other things we could do. We could do the continuation of the Mobliz quest. Now that we have an airship, I really don't know why we can't just take him home. Whatever. I already showed off the Masa. I already did that. I'm not getting that Esper right now. Trying to think. I think that's all I want to do for right now. I could show off Intangir, but actually I can't yet, can I? Not properly. Now, I haven't shown off Albrook yet, nor am I indeed going to. There's actually not a lot to talk about there. But this place, well, as I mentioned before, once we got to this area, we could actually go straight to all the locations on the southern continent, which includes the Imperial camp right here. If you came to the Imperial camp, there would be just soldiers, and they'd kick you out, and it would be horrible, and you go here, and it's completely deserted. And I mean completely deserted. There is no one in the entire Imperial camp here. Tell me this doesn't just scream trap. As an aside, it also this is just a tiny little thing, but it makes perfect sense to me that the Empire would establish such a powerful and well-invested and, you know, a large garrison right on the edge of the Esper Cave, because of course they would. I mean, really. Dances are kind of their own thing, Mugwump. Basically, you dance, and then you lose control of your character. Mog will be basically auto-attacking, auto-berserking, or whatever, except instead of like berserk where you just melee attack, he will randomly pick one of the attacks that Dance can do, and there's like 3 or 4, I want to say, dances or attacks per dance, and then he'll just randomly pick from those attacks to do until the end of combat or until he dies. It's kind of a unique thing. It's basically a magical form of berserk, which is one of the reasons several people liked it when it first came out. To my knowledge, oh, excuse me, I don't know what this symbol means. Hey Zagoten, feel free to inform me if you do. I have a feeling this is a it's 4. Thank you, John. I have a feeling this has something to do with Japanese calligraphy or something like that, because Squaresoft doesn't do anything like this on accident. Everything they do is some kind of reference or some kind of significance. If you notice, though, I mean, this is the most obvious demonstration of the excuse me, of the imperial symbol, the Gestalian Empire symbol. But if you notice, it's actually on these crates as well. You probably never even saw that. You see the symbol right there on the front of the crate? It's also on some of the artwork, like for the soldiers and whatnot, and you can see it a few other places. It's actually present here and there throughout the entire game. It's just the only times you really see it clearly is on these banners, which is in Vector and in the Imperial base here. That's not kanji? Okay. That doesn't surprise me it's not kanji, but I really would not be surprised if that's something. I mean, this is the company that said, well, we need stuff, so let's just pull from Hindu, and let's just pull from Taoism and Confucianism, and just likes to pull all sorts of things all over the place. If you berserk him while he's in dance, one cancels out the other, Titans. I forget which, but one of them cancels out the other. Could be Lex, I don't know. It's funny because I've been accused of the Imperial symbol from the Empire, from my thing, being a copy of that, but if you've actually seen the Imperial symbol, it actually doesn't really look much like that at all, and mine has its own completely separate significance and thematic purpose other than this thing, which I don't know what the hell this thing means. And that could be Javan. Amano does like his stylizations. Not complaining, not bashing the man. He likes to stylize. There's nothing wrong with that. Alright. So, like I said, first time I played this game, second time I played this game, 8th time I played this game, this place was hell. This place just beat the snot out of me. And in fact, we're just going to run from this fight, because some of the fights in here are not actually worth fighting. Oh, jeez, come on. That's exactly what I wanted to happen. Why don't we just go ahead and take a mulligan on that one? We've got a decent stock of items. I'm kind of trying to save money. We're going to need a lot of money, well, in a few hours. But the Esper Cave. So I've already talked about the Esper Cave, but I'm just going to rehash a few of the things that I've talked about with regards to the Esper Cave. The obvious warped, bizarre, nightmarish kind of nature of this thing. The enemies in here are brutal and vicious. They hurt. They have status effects. Lots of status effects. They are immune to certain types of damage. Remember, up until this point in time, most of the enemies we've been fighting have been weak to magic. Any magic. This is the first area where we start to see enemies that basically get to be tricky. These are the first tricky enemies in the game, really tricky, because again, like that pack I was just fighting, one of them is immune to fire damage, one of them is actually weak to fire damage, two of them can do status effects, one of them can just plain kill you, they all hurt, they all have magic they can cast, etc, etc, etc. So, like I said, this is the first time you're supposed to really start thinking about combat in this game, especially if you're playing for the first time or normally. This right here, the Tempest, is one of the best weapons in the game for Scion. A lot of SCCs, I'm not even going to say a lot of. I have never seen an SCC of Scion that does not go out of its way to get this sword. Why is that, you may ask? Well, because this sword has a proc effect. For those who don't know what that means, it means every now and again, when you attack with it, an effect can happen. There's a percentage chance of it, basically. A dice roll to see if it happens. You've seen several of these. Some weapons will occasionally do a spell. Some weapons will occasionally steal life or use mana to do more damage, that kind of a thing. Tempest will randomly hit the entire enemy party with an air attack, which is significant for two reasons. One, it's one of the only reliable ways to have an AoE on Scion that doesn't take time like Sword Tech does. And number two, extremely few enemies in this game are strong against air damage. Air damage is one of the rarest damage types in this game. The only thing being more rare than damage type, or in damage type than air, is actually Holy, which I think there's actually a total of 3 spells in the entire game that do Holy damage. So having that kind of an AoE air attack on Scion is tremendously useful. This is just kind of neat. It's a nice way to break things up. And again, kind of gets that across. This is like one of the only dungeons in the entire game that does this. So, you know, I just think it's kind of neat that they had this random pseudo puzzle. It's not exactly difficult, it's just different. And again, is just FF6 branching out and having a variance in what it does and how it does it. And I like that. The end. Moving on. Oops, wrong way, wrong way. That is correct, Psychotic. So here we go. These things are worth fighting. Ings and the Bone guys, whose name I can't remember, give some decent everything. So that's actually worth fighting these guys, and I indeed will be fighting these guys. What do you have on? You have Phantom, so yeah. I think so, Walter World. I haven't done the Wind God Scion thing in a long time. By the way, this has a random death effect that can hit. See? And it didn't. It's actually kind of worthless because of that. So many things in this game are immune to death. FF5 was like the only game where death was actually a useful damaging effect, you know? I agree, Lex, and I intend to talk about that when I get there. I love that room. I like it when FF6 branches out just a little bit, as I've talked about many, many times already in this playthrough. Let's go ahead and do this. So for those of you not aware, the slots thing isn't actually slots. Now, I know what you're thinking. What do you mean? Well, what I mean by that is the RNG table actually controls what slots are possible to get. In other words, if I don't do a very specific thing to set up the RNG table in a certain manner, it is actually literally impossible for me to get certain slot combinations. Literally impossible. The RNG will not allow it. If you'll notice, one thing I keep doing is I delay a few seconds before I hit A on the slot. That's because I'm actually pretty good at some of the RNG of the slot attack. If you get a jewel on the first slot, you will always get jewels on the second and the third, and that's also the easiest combination to get. That's that flashing blue attack he keeps doing. So if I do that right there, see, and then I can just mash A. It doesn't matter at that point because he will always get the 7 flush every single time. See that? So you can kind of control the RNG of the slots, especially if you know what you're doing, but it is trickier to do live than you'd think. Most people only do that to get Joker Doom, yeah, see there, or to do what I'm doing. I forget the exact formula exactly to get Joker Doom. It's something along the lines of using a particular item and then doing something else on someone who's vanished, and then basically you automatically have the ability to get Joker Doom, but not the certainty of it. You will not guarantee to get it, because then you have to actually still do the slot. See, now if you get the Chocobo, you'll always get the Chocobo too, and that's just kind of worthless. This is a terrible area to use Chainsaw, by the way. Remember how I mentioned Chainsaw's bugged? Well, no. Chainsaw, like I said, Chainsaw will try to use death attacks more often than it should. These things are immune to death, and that's all I really need to say. It's basically wasting a turn at that point. And there's a good example of a proc right there, just randomly cast ice. Damn. For the record, I don't actually like the slots thing that much. I'm not going to list it as a negative, but I do think that the slots mechanic is not the greatest mechanic in the known universe, as far as gameplay things. I didn't like it in 7 that much either. Even using the trick, it just seems kind of eh. Although, in honesty, part of why I don't like it is it feels a little bit too, it's not actually random, like I already told you. So, you know, it's not actually a slot wheel, so that's part of why I don't like it. But it's also the fact that you have to get certain combinations, and there's really not a lot of good ways to get those without using the tricks, or just mashing A and hoping for it, hoping for the best. And so it would be really nice if, like, for example, it was just one slot wheel, right? If that makes any sense? Just one slot wheel, and then you pick something, and then it does an effect. That would be actually a lot cooler. especially if you could time it properly. So in other words, no RNG table involved, just if you pick the slot correctly, if you have the timing, then it works. That makes it much more reliant on player skill, while still having some RNG involved, and making it so that Setzer becomes much more useful long-term while still having risk associated with his attacks. That's just my take on it. Hey Noel, hope you're enjoying Psalm 2, aka Second Densetsu 3, aka the greatest game most people have never played. Love that game, personally. Hope you're liking it, seriously. Okay, so she's just going to stay on Bismarck for now. We're not really doing spell ups right now. We're mostly doing stat ups. With 2 exceptions, and that's you two. Okay, Mugu Mugu, yeah, we'll talk about Mugu Mugu in a second. That would be cool too, Javan. I actually like that concept. In fact, if I can be so bold, one of the slots I do think is acceptable is Tifa's Limit Break in 7, where you are like, you know, deal, and you can pick, you know, great for great damage, and then standard for standard damage, and then miss for like no damage. That would be okay with me. I think that would work. And like as Setzer levels up, maybe he gets additional things, just like Tifa gets additional things on her limit breaks. That would be okay. And each thing, or as you're hinting at, make it so like, for example, okay, so we've got the diamond does piercing damage, because that's what it actually does. Chocobo does like physical damage. The Bahamut symbol does magic type damage. Okay, the bar thing does some kind of random status effect, and the airship does an AoE effect, and the 7, you know, does something amazing. And so, in other words, if I got like a 7, a diamond, and a Bahamut, what I would do is a piercing magical hit that has, or excuse me, a piercing magical a hit that has like some kind of bonus effect, like haste or something like that, right? And I just think that would be cool. I just think that would be cool, and it would make it always useful. It would keep the RNG element while still maintaining the skill element, and would encourage you to use slot more often. Right now I'm using slots because I have nothing else to do on Setzer. Once he starts getting some spells, I'm never going to touch slots again because it's kind of worthless, you know? And yeah, that's actually supposed to be Bahamut. So, yeah, that's my complaint with slots or not. I think that would really work to that. So, what's up, Shows-Off? How you been, man? I haven't seen you in a while. Hope you enjoy my incredibly in-depth discussion of FF6. I have been really dissecting the game this time around, and it's not the only game I intend to dissect like that. I mean, hi. So yeah, I'm going to be fighting every Zambone and every Ing because I really need the Exp and the MP and the GP. This is actually one of the best, this is the 3rd best place to level prior to the World of Ruin. The second, oh no, excuse me, this is the 2nd best place, I'm saying that wrong, this is the 2nd best place to level prior to the World of Ruin. The 3rd best place is actually right outside Vector. There's a forest there that contains chicken lips, which give otherwise the best returns in the World of Balance. And the 1st best, shut up, Sikoten. It's me, man. Do you want me to? Okay, here's my review of FF6 in brief. You ready for this? It's great. Go buy it. There's my review. The 1st best place before the World of Ruin to level, by the way, is the Floating Continent, which is actually one of the best places to level in the entire game. It is better leveling in terms of Exp, Gold, and MP than most of the places in the World of Ruin. Nah, I don't think I'll do that, Cashel. I'm way out of touch with actual programming vocabulary, so I wouldn't actually know how to do all the things I would want to do. Hey, Cashel. Like I could go to someone else and say I want this, but I couldn't actually do it myself. And I gotta be honest, I'm not that good of a writer. My own sister thinks I'm not a good writer. No, what she thinks is I make wonderful worlds and plots, and she thinks I suffer at character stuff, and she's right. As much as I enjoy and can understand good character writing, I have some significant issues actually doing it myself. So ninjas, These used to be some of my least favorite enemies in the entire game. That's not actually true anymore, but the reason why... Oh, you son of a... Hang on. That's one of the reasons why. They like to throw skeins, which hurt like hell. And I mean, they just hurt. And they like to go invisible. And they're also... you can't run from ninja fights. Okay, so, yeah, kinda casual, if I'm being honest. I really cannot do character stuff that well. I never have been able to. So this is really badly translated. A lot of people have theorized back in the day, you know, what is the hint he's giving? You know, the plaza between the stairway, what the heck's he talking about? He's actually referring to the hidden goodies in the Imperial base. Seriously. I kid you not. So I'm going to show off the Mugu Mugu. I'm just going to do it right here. Bamf. There. Yeah. If you hold down A, you will always get Mugu Mugu. It's a guarantee. Legomorph. Bum, pow. Bum, pow. Mugu Mugu. Okay, so... someone who is more knowledgeable and intelligent than me can tell you what the Mugu Mugu, the Lagomorph actually is. Oh, come on, come on. Here's the H-bomb, for those who've never seen it. It's an AoE attack that does a huge amount of damage, as you can see. 1,700 damage there at level, like, 20. Yeah. It's also really rare, and you have to actually have the RNG set up to get it at all. So apparently I had set up the RNG table properly there. I don't know what the Mugu Mugu, the Lagomorph actually is. However, yeah, just barely casual, just barely. However, the interesting thing about the Mugu Mugu, hey Roaring Middleman, is that I am not the only player who has, for some reason, latched onto that phrase and used it outside of FF6. I know several other people who are friends of mine. I have met people since then who are like, Mugu Mugu. There are some people I can just say that to and they will understand what I mean by it. Most of that, I think, is because of the commonality of it. Because it's what you get if you don't get a combination, basically. If you don't get a combination of other things, you get the Lagomorph, and it heals for a ridiculously small amount of health. Personally, what I would have done is I would have... well, you know how I would redo the slots, right? I've already mentioned that. What I would have done is I would have either had in an additional slot thing or something like that, or just changed one of the slot things, like, say, 7, for example, into something that specifically heals, right? And so the more heals you get, the greater the heal. So, like, if you get a single 7, for example, it only heals for, say, like, 200 or whatever, but then it could heal up to, like, say, 600 and then, like, to 1800 or something like that, you know, that kind of a thing. So I think that would be really cool. Personally, Mugu Mugu is kind of worthless, though, if I'm being honest. Possibly Roaring Middleman, not sure yet. There's a few. We'll see. Overall, I am not that enthused about any of them except Trespasser. I'm already aware of the plot of all of them except for Trespasser. So make of it what you will. I'd have to reinstall the game too. That is something that can actually happen, Lex. There are 2 results. One of them kills the entire enemy party. In other words, it hits them with a death attack. One of them hits the entire party with a unique death attack that cannot be... It's basically not an actual death attack. It is it kills the enemy attack. And if you don't understand the significance, a death attack, an enemy that is immune to or resistant to death attacks, would not be hit by that. But the not a death attack that just kills you. That is in fact called Joker Doom. The Joker Doom trick is by far the most common and well-known method of speedrunning this game, because what they do is they just literally Joker Doom every single encounter and every single boss ever, up to and including the last boss. They're just like, alright, here's Kefka, Joker Doom, and here's Kefka's Tower Part 2, Joker Doom, and here's Kefka's Power Part 3, Joker Doom, and that's all they do. It's actually the reason why when I started speedrunning this game, I made a specific rule of no Joker Doom, because I was sick of it. I do not enjoy Joker Doom. It's boring. I mean, no offense to people who do it, because it's not easy. You know, it is something you still have to do, but... God, it's just like every fight. Joker Doom, Joker Doom, Joker Doom, Joker Doom, Joker Doom, Joker Doom. I don't remember off the top of my head, Zagon. I'd have to look it up. For those of you not aware, the way you do Joker Doom is you do a couple of events. I forget exactly what they are, but you do them in sequence so that you basically cause a few effects. Basically, switch the RNG table into a certain value, and then you muddle Setzer so he Joker Dooms, you know, the enemies rather than you, and then they all just die instantly. And I think there's like three. There's like three enemy encounter battles in the entire game, including a couple of the final Kefka ones, that you can't do that on unless you do another trick, and so forth and so on. Yes, I have Tristan. Didn't like it. I know it's based off of the GBA version, so as I've said to many people, if that's the version you have access to, go for it. I know, and I understand, you know, money's an issue, availability's an issue, and getting the GBA version nowadays is hard to do. They had a limited print run, and it's pretty expensive to buy. And the original SNES version, while certainly good, also is kind of hard to get a hold of a legitimate copy of, and has its own flaws and problems. However, if you have the availability to get the GBA version, I have recommended that strongly over the iOS version because, and I don't really have a good way to explain this, I hate the graphics. I hate the aesthetics of it. I think it looks just genuinely bad. It's not just an I don't like it. It is an active negative for me. Can't stand it. I have no idea. You know, obviously that's going to be an opinion thing. What I usually recommend then is if you know, look at a few screenshots, see if you like it, see if you can tolerate it. If you can, go for it. If you can't, try to find another version. I know several people who have actually only really had the availability to play the PS1 version, and that kind of sucks. But I mean, in the end, it is still FF6. So I try not to be elitist. See you around, Braglin. Wave. I shouldn't actually wave. The camera's not on. I keep actually physically doing stuff because I'm so used to the camera, and it's like, oh yeah, I don't have a camera right now. So I'm about to get a interesting weapon. Some people call it the best weapon in the game. That is debatable. It is more accurate, I personally think, to call the Illumina the best weapon in the game. But yeah, exactly, Lex. They look like RPG Maker. It's not just the sprites too. The text looks just wrong and cheap. It looks like they literally just took a freaking RPG Maker and poured it into that and then dumped it on the iOS version. It's just weird. But yeah, the iOS version is basically the GBA version, just ported with the terrible graphics. So if, like I said, if that's the one you have access to, go for it. Atma weapon, right there. You see that? Now, the Atma weapon. This is the first time this was a thing in FF. This has become a thing since then in several FFs. Since this game, notably 7, where the Ultima weapon had the exact same concept. The Atma weapon does more damage based on your current health. In other words, if you have quad 9 health, which is easy to get at, like, say, level 40-ish, you will be doing a crap ton of damage. Hey, Theru, what's up, man? But if you get hit in the middle of combat, and then like your health gets crunked down, you get meteored and you're down to 2,000 health, the Atma weapon's damage will go down significantly. Now, there's actually quite a few formulas specifically for the Atma weapon, but there's one interesting thing about the Atma weapon, which can actually make it useful in certain other circumstances. Its formula code for calculating the damage it does on a swing skips a step and replaces that with a 1. So rather than check this value, it just adds a 1 to that value. Now, if you don't understand the significance of that, that step it skips means that certain enemies you shouldn't be able to hit or shouldn't be able to do damage to, you can with the Atma weapon. In some cases, you can just plain hit things that otherwise you're bypassing defenses basically, in a similar way to how the dice do for Setzer over there. So it's a really cool weapon. It also looks like a lightsaber, so that's cool. Yes, it looks like a lightsaber on purpose. Star Wars reference deliberate. I've talked about this several times. So, you know. No, don't get her bitten, Deutsch, or don't let her get bitten, you know what I mean. Ah, good, we learned a few things. What did we learn today, children? Of course, she's done, but I'm leaving her on that. Okay. He's still working on Doom, so we'll put you on that. There we go. And yeah, we're just gonna leave you. Actually, we could put you on that instead. Yeah, there we go. So here's a really dumb question for some of you guys. How many of you out there agree with the... I don't actually know what it's called. Like I call it the expansion colliery, okay? Let me give you a direct example of what I'm talking about. Forgive me for not talking about FF6 for a moment, but I've already talked about this cave so much. That always happens whenever I do a lore run or a review or whatever. I run out of things to say the further into the game I get. The idea here is you have, you know, each new version of the game, Fighter Guy 1 and then Fighter Guy 2 and then Fighter Guy 5. The idea is to make the further version as, to improve the technology, to refine the UI, to improve the graphics, that kind of a thing, and of course to add new content. Once you get to a certain point, the gameplay side of things gets really refined and really well done, to the point where there's not really much else to do with the graphics, with the UI, with the gameplay, right? Therefore, any future things are just going to be additional content. At that point, the colliery, and this is a recent thing, because, it's only in recent era that graphics have finally slowed down and plateaued in terms of quality. And this goes for gameplay and UI stuff as well. So the idea here is, after a certain point, why bother making a sequel? Why not make an expansion? Keep the original game and just keep adding new content to it. For the developer side of things, it is way easier, cheaper on time and money to make an expansion than it is a sequel. And from a player perspective, we keep the gameplay we already enjoy and then just get more content. Now, I don't think that should happen infinitely, but it is something that's only really been available in the modern era, in the last few years, really. So what do you guys think of that concept? I could name a couple examples of what I'm talking about, but shrug. So here we are, the sealed gate. Now, here's a fun fact, and you're all going to make fun of me for this. For the longest time, I thought that was a staircase leading up. It's actually, for those of you not aware, it's actually a bridge leading across a pit over to where the actual gate is. Now, as you may or may not be aware, that gate was actually erected by the Elder 16 years ago, so that gate is actually new. I like the idea, again, the magical nature of this place with, you're in a cave and you walk across and you see this distant skyline and clouds and thunder and lightning. In other words, it's that same concept I was talking about with the Phantom Train. And again, if this was in full 3D awesome, I would make it look like you just walked out into the world, even though you're still in a cave. Make sense? This scene is very important because the original English translation didn't actually get across the point of what's happening here properly. In other words, and this is freaking brilliant, in other words, everything up to this point in time has been a trick by Gestalt. The entire point, from the Empire's perspective, all the way up to this, That's true, Lex. And all the way up to this is the idea that they need more espers, right? And yeah, there's that esper in Narsh, and yeah, there are other espers they don't know about, but all Geshtal is thinking is mine. I want it, and I want it now. And keep in mind, they know about the statues, and they know where the statues are. So Geshtal hatches this plot. Send Terra with a few troops up to Tritok. If they get Tritok, great. I have a new Esper. However, the whole point in sending her with those 2 troops, who were not elite troops, they were just regular Magitech troops, up there into one of the most defended cities in the world, in order to, I mean, I know that's not actually saying much, but, you know, they were sending, you know, up there, is specifically for the goal of Terra being rescued by the Returners, because he knew that if she was rescued, and then immediately after that, what happens? They had already planned the invasion of Narsh, the invasion of Doma, the invasion of Figaro. In other words, pushing the Returners into a corner. With the Returners having their back to the wall, they would be willing to do something desperate, and they would have Terra on their side, so they would actually say, you know what, we need to pull the trigger, we need to go after the Espers, and Terra would be willing to come here and open the gate. Now, this is important because we've established rather significantly that Terra, while under the slave collar, could never open the gate. We don't know why exactly. Maybe she was unwilling to do it, maybe she didn't know how to do it. Maybe the only way to open the gate is actually to communicate with the Espers on the other side, and a brain-dead, mind-controlled Terra obviously can't do that. Indeed, it is possible that they tried that, and the Espers on the other side were like, you know, either not understanding or thought it was a trick or figured out what was going on or something. So they needed Terra to come here willingly and open the gate willingly. And so every single thing that has happened up until this point in time has been Geshtal trying to manipulate Terra into this gate on her own free will and to open it of her own free will so that he and his empire could storm into the gate with all their advanced weaponry and magitech and take all the Espers this time and the statues, and win. I mention this because this is a classic style twist. This is the kind of thing you'll see all the time in JRPGs, but most people completely miss this twist because it's so badly translated in the English version. You know, so few people realize this is one of those we've been working with the bad guys this whole time, or excuse me, for the bad guys this whole time situations. Sometimes taken to an extreme example. Chrono Cross is actually a good example of a game where you're working for the bad guys for, well, basically the entire game. Now, I'm going to pause for a second because I want to talk about something else here really quick. I have heard a theory that Javan just referenced, I don't know if he referenced it on purpose, that Bannon is working for Geshtal. That he was always working for Geshtal, either as a spy or as an actual agent to Geshtal. Here's the thing. That makes a lot of sense. In fact, it makes kind of a disturbing amount of sense when you think about it. How many other points in the game do you see definitive proof that Bannon is not working for Geshtal? I'm dead serious. How many? Because Bannon's running the Returners? Keep in mind the Returners have been losing for some time. How about the fact that Bannon has been active in trying to ensure certain things have lined up, which ended up working in the Empire's favor? Or the fact that Bannon was equally horrified when he saw the destroyed Vector, etc., etc., and then Bannon just kind of vanishes after a certain point in the game. Now, I'm not saying Bannon is a spy or a turncoat or whatever, but I have heard that theory, and there's not a lot of evidence against it. There's not a lot of evidence for it either, just a little bit. Basically, the Terra thing I already mentioned. But, yeah, something for your consideration. Also, I agree with what Lex just did. I like the fact that we have this custom background here, which is only used one other time in the entire game, and it's for a cutscene. Oh, yeah, by the way, if you hit him at all... Exactly, Little Billy. That's the theory, that the Returners were always an Imperial sham. Again, I don't know if that's true or not, I don't know if I believe in that or not, but I like the idea a lot. It really emphasizes how on top of things the Empire and Geshtal really were until we came along. it really further emphasizes that the party, not just the individuals, but the whole group, really are the ones who actively turned around the situation. Not the returners, not the nations, not the people, us. Yeah, Bahamut. Uh, Zone Seek, I think. I used to be able to identify these on sight. I'm not as good at it anymore. Fenrir. That was Torado. Shiva, for some reason. Kirin, I believe that one was. So then the door... So the Espers rush out. Now, they kind of explain what happens here. Again, the English version doesn't really go into the details it needed to. The idea is several of the Espers were already at the gate, on their side. Yeah, actually it is Noel. And K's reference is correct as well. I always thought that looked like a skull, those rocks. So the Espers were already sitting on the other side of the gate, literally debating how to get through to try and save their friends. And that's when Terra shows up. And I was like, hey. And they are like, oh, the gate's... Okay, we'll open the gate then. And between the two of them, they open the gate. But then the moment they come into the human world, it's been established many times that Esper power and magical power works differently in this world than in the Esper realm. I have a theory about that I'll get into in a moment. So, the Espers get out here and literally lose control. They literally go wild, as if they were just nothing more than beasts, because they're not used to having to control their power here. They're so accustomed. By the way, this exit thing is the greatest thing FF6 has ever done. Having to go back through that whole dungeon again would have just been nightmarish. Anyways, so they lose control, and that's why they just rage around and end up destroying Vector, because they just were trying to control themselves and couldn't, and their magical power just was unleashed in a wildfire storm of death and destruction. I actually really like, again, in the 3D awesome version of this game, the idea of seeing these Espers just wildly, wantonly destroying things, screaming, raging, inhuman sounds, completely out of control, right? Javan, your skin's having some issue there. Not sure. I mean, if you want me to leave you that way, I can, Javan. That's up to you, man. Anyways. So we've just had a big reveal, and I mean a huge reveal. You know, the big twist. Oh my gosh. We've been working for the Empire this whole time, knowingly or otherwise. Well, then this happens. And remember, we hit the total freedom point not too long ago, relatively speaking. I mean, yeah, there's some optional stuff we could do, and indeed have done, and indeed should have done some more of. I just was going to do it later. And then the Espers come careening. No, this is not the end of Season 3, at least not in my opinion. Although I could see the argument for that, but I don't agree, personally. Too short, and not enough significant events have happened. You'll see what I mean. So there's Bahamut, zooming by. Whoa, careful there, Locke. There's Kirin again. Bismarck, Carbuncle, Phantom. And so the Esper's raging by, again, out of control, magic just literally splashing off of their forms, damages the airship. And then this happens, and we lose the airship. We have had our total freedom point, and then we've had it taken away from us. Now, I like this a little bit better than what happens in the previous ones. Remember, I mentioned this before, in FF 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, they tease us. We get a little bit more freedom, and then I get a little bit more freedom, and then get a little bit more freedom. In FF6, we are given total freedom, and then it is taken away. Then we will get it back again. It'll be taken away one more time, and then we'll get it back, and we'll never lose it again. I prefer that method, personally, to the incremental teasing version that the previous 5 FFs did. Now this is a nice touch. If you're paying attention, you can tell that that's just the cloud graphic in the background, because they only have the one graphic for this screen, right? For the airship. But they tilted it green, so unless you're really looking at it, you're supposed to just automatically assume that's grass. That's the ground that we have landed on. It's a nice little touch. No, they don't, Javan. Although that would have been really cool, and for record, if I was doing the full proper 3D Awesome remake, I would actually give the player control of the airship as it's careening down, but I would make it so you can't control the height. So no matter what you do, it's continuing to fall and fall until it just kind of starts leaning in a direction and then finally there's a little cutscene for when you actually crash here. I'm going to go ahead and switch up my party now a little bit. Also, everyone says something different for this section of the game, which is pretty cool, actually. Yeah, we'll do that. Well, yeah, we'll do this. We're about to go through another one of those non-combat sections that I've mentioned several times, and again is among my favorite sections in the game. And again, this is another cool thing that some people haven't really noticed when they first played this game. At many points in the game, you could come back to the airship and they'll say something different. The only exception is when you hit the World of Ruin. Whatever they say when they join in the World of Ruin, that's it. That's what they're going to say forevermore. But for several sections in the World of Balance, they change their tune, for lack of a better term. So take the sprint shoes. Agreed, Cashel. Now, I know several people who hate this section because they have to walk all the way from over here, all the way over to Vector. And that's because those people don't know that this is here. Be honest, you didn't know this was here either, early on. I will also be honest, I am one of those people who didn't realize it was here when I first played this game. So what's coming up is another of my favorite sections of this game. The Imperial Banquet is what it's usually referred to as, but it's a little bit more than that. It's basically Vector 2. This is the last time we will actually be visiting Vector, and let's just say that this is a very interesting take for the story to go into. Is everyone equipped? Yep, okay. Everyone espered up. I guess it doesn't matter, actually. Oh, absolutely, Lex. The thought bubbles were a fantastic addition to FF4DS. They even added some foreshadowing to some of those. My favorite example of that is when you're going through the sealed cave in the underworld. Kane slowly starts to have that. You see that Kane is slowly being mind-controlled until he can't resist it anymore, right? If you don't understand the significance of that, I talked about this during the marathon, that gave us an answer we never had before. Some people had theorized that Kane had been mind-controlled the whole time and was only pretending not to be mind-controlled to slip back to Golbez's side. Some people actually thought Kane was actually a bad guy when that first happened, like a legitimate bad guy, no mind control at all. But because of those thought bubbles, we now see that Kane had actually been freed from Golbez's and Zemus's mind control, and then was re-controlled at the end of that dungeon. So that's just one example of a nuance that is added to the game with those thought bubbles. So yeah, Vector is a mess. And I mean a mess. There's actually stuff on the ground. Everything's on fire. There's the ground is wrecked. Most of the NPCs who were here are gone. That's because they're dead, by the way. I don't mean to be too harsh, but this is supposed to be a bad moment. This is another of those things I think would be awesome in full 3D Awesome, and I could explain this very simply. Final Fantasy IX, Lindblum, after Atomos crushes it. You remember that? You remember that whole section? I loved that section. Absolutely loved that section. Because they really, really demonstrated just how catastrophic and damaging Alexandria's attack on Lindblom had been. And we got all of that because of how they presented, because of the ruins, because of the NPCs. They actually changed the terrain and changed the scenes just for that. That was such a damn good scene. So imagine that here. Again, full 3D awesome, full proper remake, and you could just go through this place. There's corpses. There's people trying to recover them. Some people are just in shell shock. The Returner and Narsh forces are stunned. Here's Bannon up here, the Imperial agent, who says another nonsense line because of Woolsey. Yeah, the Necrohall of Nabudis is another very, very good area to get that across, that idea. And FF12, also an incredibly difficult area, especially if you're going there super early to get the spear. Yeah, me too, Safis. In fact, as I've talked about before, there's a fake ending that we'll be getting to in like 3 major scenes, something like that. So here we go. This is our very first time inside the Imperial Palace. This is actually not a unique tile set, but it is a tile set that was specifically done for this area. And this is the only other place this tile set is used is in Kefka's Tower. So this is pretty cool. We got to talk to a lot of soldiers. I really hate to reference Mass Effect 3 here, but hear me out, okay? Don't lynch me. I'm ready for this, okay? In Mass Effect 3, one of the good things they did was there was a section of the game where the Elusive Man commented on how he deliberately went out of his way to ensure that the members of Cerberus that Shepard worked with were the, shall we say, better members of Cerberus, people who were more idealistic or optimistic, who were not pragmatic, who were not, to be blunt, evil, because he wanted Shepard to see that side of Cerberus. I have always had the mental impression that most of the soldiers we encounter here are the exact same scenario. In other words, Geshtal has specifically arranged for certain soldiers to be here in the palace at this point in time, so that when we go through here to talk with them, remember, he asks us to talk to them, remember? To convince them? Remember that? That just sounds so much like a please believe my sincerity thing. Please believe that the Empire isn't evil. In other words, slanting the situation in order to convince and indeed manipulate us. Because, just like with Cerberus, all the Empire is not evil, right? However, in both cases, we were put in connection with the not evil ones to manipulate and deceive us. That's all I'm getting to there. And yes, Lex, that is actually true. Cabe, it's in when you're going through the Cerberus base in the second to last section of Mass Effect 3, there are several audio files and logs you can get of the Elusive Man, several which talk about Edie, some of which talk about Shepard, that kind of a thing. Oh, absolutely psychotic. Because remember, all this crap is being caused by Geshtal. And as Javan pointed out, as of this point in time, the Emperor has basically won. The sealed gate is over there and is less sealed than it has ever been before. Geshtal is at the point where he can now fully convince his only real opponents that he is actually not the bad guy. And he could convince his opponents who have already been doing his bidding unknowingly to do his bidding knowingly. Get all the rest of the Espers gathered together in one spot, take the Espers, open the gate, get the statues. This is literally endgame for Geshtal. Now, as an aside, I like to do this because I'm a weirdo. Get the Royal Guard here to shove you out of the way. It's a shame we never really get to see anything of the Royal Guard. They look, well, again, a very Star Wars reference thing going on there. They look like they would be really cool and have some kind of story or elite fighting force or whatever, but we only fight them once and it's kind of a joke and that's it. So anyways, Geshtal. Geshtal begins his comment with, "I've lost the will to fight." Pay attention to everything he says here. It doesn't fully add up. And then Sid walks through a guy. That doesn't add up either. But Sid, this is again that same thing. I want Shepard invested, exactly, Kate. I want the returners invested. So the Emperor Gestalt goes out of his way to let them to talk to Sid, and give the impression that Sid has convinced the Emperor to stop his war of genocide and conquest, which, well, as I've already mentioned, Gestalt is an evil bastard. But anyway, so the Espers came. So Sid gives the tale. The Espers destroyed everything, trashed the town, screeching rage. I already mentioned that scene. The sentries walk forward, say their party lines there. The power of those Espers, I had no idea. Bull crap! You had no idea of the power of Espers. Your Magitech weapons can do this exact same type of thing. They'll shred the world. We must get them to understand we are no longer at war. Notice the subtlety of this lie, because it's actually one of those lies that is truthful. In other words, deceiving with a truth. The Espers are a danger to the entire world. True. The only way to stop the Espers from destroying the world, at least from our misunderstanding at this point in time, is to convince them we are no longer at war. True. Gestalt wants to stop the war. True. All of these things are truths. Sid is, of course, the one who mentions that Terra is pretty much flat required for this endeavor. Gestalt, of course, is like, well, let us feast, let us rejoice, this peace celebration. This is pretty standard in real life, too. We have declared peace. First thing we need to do is we have to have a feast. First thing we got to do is celebrate it. We'll work out the politics and the diplomatics and the paperwork later. Let's just eat right now. So then Sid is like, hey, could you go talk to all the soldiers? You got it. And then Sid stopped walking through people. Yeah. I remember when this was actually hard for me to do. Anyone out there? Same boat? Of course, part of that is because I used to read a little slower than I do now. Nowadays, I just blaze through these. So again, most of these soldiers, the vast majority of them, are actually like, yep, war's over, war is bad, we don't want to fight again, etc., etc. I agree, Psychotic. Food, as I've often said, is a social experience. Eating is a social experience, absolutely. Kefka has been imprisoned for poisoning at Doma. Some of the soldiers actually fight, as we showcase here. Edgar is pretty much going to be soloing these. Yes, he will, Lex. Hang on, gotta pay a little bit of attention here. The roamers, I need to keep track, because if you talk to the same guy twice, it doesn't count. So again, most of these guys in this barracks area are just like, yep, peace, and blah, blah, blah. The Magitech research facility has been dismantled, because they don't need it anymore. Again, a truth. They have Magicite now. Why would they need the research facility? And that is, by the way, that's Gestalt's mentality in like one thing. If I could ever describe all of Gestalt's mentality in one sentence, it's the fact that he spent years and ridiculous amounts of money and time and work and effort and resources creating this huge research facility. And the moment it stopped being useful, he discarded it. The moment he got something better, he threw it out the window. So, yeah, there you go. Emperor Gestalt, ladies and gentlemen. There's another fight in here. I knew some people would go out of the way to avoid the fights because they just couldn't finish this section in time. I knew one guy who never thought to use sprint shoes on this section until I did it, and he was like, why didn't I ever do that? That was Joel, who I've referenced before. Yeah, pretty much exactly that, Night Dawn. It's also worth noting that Gestalt is definitely the kind of person who wants personal power in addition to political power. In other words, he doesn't just want to rule the world. He wants to be, forgive me for the Death Note quote, the god of the new world. And but I mean that sincerely. He wants to be so personally powerful that he can just do whatever he wants whenever he wants it, however he wants it, and have all the people worship him. He specifically says the word worship, and that's not a mistranslation in that case. And we can use the toilet, because FF6. Squaresoft, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, that would be terrible, Lex. That would be absolutely terrible. We'll talk to Kefka in a minute. Oh, absolutely, Javan. I agree with that completely. Here's another fight. This is the last of the 3 fights we have to do here. Mega Armor. It'll learn your abilities after it defeats you. But yeah, it's funny because I mentioned that personal power thing because there's a lot of leaders in fiction who are villains, who eat potato chips, who specifically want political power, and even when given the option to get personal power, they only use personal power to get political power. But it's very clear based on Gestal's actions in his character arc that he always wanted personal power. He always wanted to be the guy who was the magic god who was sitting on top of the world, and again able to do whatever he wanted whenever he wanted. I have a term for that, but I'll talk about that in a moment. Because first we got to see some Kefka. Here's a question for you guys: did Gestal tell Kefka about the plan when he put him in here? I've heard theories on that in both directions. By the way, almost perfect timing there. I'm going to pause for a moment to talk about this concept. I've talked before that there are people who want power because they want to rule, they want to be leaders, and then there are people who want power for the benefits of rule. And of course, I guess there's the third category, which is people who want both. To name one of my favorite examples, the original Palpatine, as in the one from, before he just completely, he won and retired and gave in to the dark side and became this evil bastard. The original Palpatine wanted to rule. He wanted to be the one in charge of the galaxy. And he did it, and then, he retired, basically. But there are plenty of people in fiction who specifically want to conquer everything to be in charge, because they want to be the ones actually ruling the world. Vayne in Final Fantasy XII is another excellent example of this type of character. Then there are people who just want to be in charge for the benefits of it. They don't actually want to be ruler of the galaxy, or the world, or the continent, or the country. They will happily fawn that off onto someone else. They want all the benefits of that power. Rendon Howe over in Dragon Age is probably the most severely disgusting example of that I could come up with off the top of my head. He is a terrible leader and a terrible ruler and had no real interest in commanding himself. He just wanted to be able to walk around and order people to do whatever he wanted. He wanted the benefits, right? I mention this because, in my opinion, Gestal was the latter category. He didn't want to rule the world. He didn't give a damn about actually giving orders and saying, do this, do that. He has people to do that for him. Gestal wanted to be able to walk up to someone and say, kneel, and for them to do it. He wanted to walk up and take from people. Take their food, take their goods, take their money, take their lives, doesn't matter. He wanted that kind of freedom of option to just be able to do whatever he wanted. As Kay pointed out earlier, he is just a greedy, selfish pig who only cares about himself. Yeah, very, very Tarkin. In other words, Tarkin himself is another benefits of rule kind of a leader. He doesn't give a damn about actually running things. In fact, Tarkin is a terrible leader. He is a terrible commander, a terrible tactician, a terrible strategist, and a terrible leader. The only reason he got to the top was because that power was handed to him by someone who made a huge mistake. But he wanted those benefits. He wanted to be the one who could just do whatever, whenever he wanted it, however he wanted it, because, damn it, I deserved more. And that's Gestal. And that's another reason of, like, the 5 reasons I've already given why I consider Gestal the most evil bastard in all of FF6, and among the most evil characters across all of the FF series, up there in the category of, like, say, Hojo and Exdeath. People who are just despicably, horribly evil. Now, I noticed Javan and Baronessa disagree on a singular point. I'm not actually sure which one of those I agree with. I'm not actually sure which one of those I go with, whether he told Kefka or if he didn't. I like the idea that he didn't, but at the same time I'm not sure that fits. Because I can't imagine Kefka so willingly being like, oh, okay, I'll go back to following your orders, sir, under those circumstances. I don't know. Either way, this is an awesome little section. That lobster looks really good. I'm hungry. I should have lunch. What do you guys think? Should I have lunch after this awesome sequence? So this is the banquet. The Imperial Banquet. For those of you who do not know, you are being scored for this. Yeah, actually, Formosan, that's a great example. I'm sorry, forgive me for interrupting myself. Mithran Naruto, Grand Admiral Thrawn, and Jorah Sibyoth are a perfect example of the wanting to rule and wanting the benefit of rule. And they even talk about it. The two of them talk back at each other and disagree on the point. Thrawn wanted to rule the galaxy for actually being the guy in charge, and he would have been good at it too. Sibyoth didn't give a damn about that. People's lives are in my hands. That's what matters. I can tell people to do anything, and they will do it. That's what matters. Sibyoth wanted the benefit of rule. And what Kay says is correct. Kefka was pretty strong at this point in the game, so it's pretty clear he could have gotten out of that cell if he wanted to. So based on that, I think I'm going to have to go ahead and go and say that Kefka probably was aware of the plan, if for no other reason than that. So for those of you who don't know, you're being scored for this entire chunk of the game. From the moment you start the 4-minute thing, how many people you talk to there, each one of those is worth 1 point. Based on the answers you give during the banquet, you get a certain number of points or 0 points. Based on if you answer the correct question at a certain point, you get points. If you fight the guys and take a break, you get points, etc., etc., etc. Please tell me you're joking, Django. I mean, really, please tell me that's a joke. God almighty, please tell me that's a freaking joke. I've gone on record, during the Tor lore run, I went on record as saying that the worst super weapon in all of Star Wars was the frickin' Suncrusher, and I meant it. You gotta be kidding me. Whatever. So we toast to our hometowns. I think I remember this. It's been a while. I used to actually have a list that I had printed out, and by printed out I mean I had written because I didn't have access to a printer back here. That of all the proper answers. What should we do with Kefka? It's funny that for those of you not aware, no matter what answer you give for some of these things, he will say the same thing. If you say execute him, he'll say, well, let's leave him in jail. If you say leave him in jail, he'll say, well, let's leave him in jail. If you say pardon him, he'll say, well, let's leave him in jail. Right there, that line there doesn't even change, no matter what you answer. This is true in several circumstances. This was unexcusable. The poisoning of Doma was inexcusable, because it kind of was. And again, was she a spy? We trust her. Celis is one of us. No matter what you say, he says the same thing. This is one of those other things where everything... Damn it, Baronessa! Where, none of these things actually... Damn it, Django. I was hoping you were wrong. Whatever. This is another of those things where not everything he says actually lines up correctly. I've always said Sibyoth. I don't actually know if that's correct. Feel free to correct me if it's wrong. I will continue saying Sibyoth just like I have for a very long time. So you have to ask all 3 questions. And then Gestalt specifically, the way he directs this conversation is fascinating. What's the first thing he says? Let's toast. Okay, that's true, Formosan. That is not as over the top as the stupid Suncrusher, but still. In all honesty, I was hoping we didn't have a super weapon in episode 7. I'm a little super weaponed out, you know. I talked about this during the Tor run. Gestalt starts off saying, you know, Toast! And then he says, and then he talks about Kefka and the poisoning of Doma, and he's contrite, he's apologetic, and then he reaffirms that Celis is a good guy. You know, all that he's doing here is trying to ensure you that he is believable, that he knows what he's talking about. And then he just kind of and then he offers you to ask questions. This is like textbook conversation manipulation. Really. Just open up, open, honest, be willing to take the hit, relatively speaking, in terms of like, you know, I admit that I'm wrong, I admit that you're right, I am sorry, you know, take all these social hits in order to try and ensure that the other side is as receptive as possible, then let them talk, get out whatever they want to say, then turn it towards something where you start talking about something related to whatever you want to talk to, in this case, the Espers. So he starts talking about the Espers. And that's when he guides the direction of the conversation back towards what he actually cares about, which we'll talk about in a moment, because first we have to take a break to get some more points. I always wondered why you get points for this. Fight the soldiers. Well, sure, we'll see, Formosan. Don't mistake, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm still going to watch episode 7 opening night, midnight, or more accurately 7 p.m. because they don't do midnight showings anymore. I'm probably going to buy those tickets like the moment they go on sale. You know, I'm going to be there, damn it. And I am going to be streaming the next day. I guarantee you, the next day I'm going to be doing an episode 7 stream to talk about it with you guys and sharing it. So, be watching for that. See, I'm way stronger than you guys. There we go. Yes. Or rather, Edgar is way stronger than you guys. I'm sorry, Tristan, that the war's truly over. Now, this is one of those lines that is properly translated, and it works beautifully. I have ordered this war to be over. This is Gestalt tipping his hand right here. I'm dead serious. Think about it. He doesn't say, yes, I want the war to be over. He doesn't say, I am open to peace. He doesn't say, everything is going to be awesome. You know, he doesn't say, we will negotiate in good fortune. He says, I have ordered this war to be over. That is very Gestalt, very much akin to the way he thinks and his mentality and function, that he actually genuinely believes that if he says something has to happen, it will happen. Again, I want you to just picture this line right here. I want you to picture this line being said by Grand Moff Tarkin. Just picture his voice. I forget the name of the actor. He's a great actor. He's a fantastic actor. Cushing, Peter Cushing. Imagine Peter Cushing saying that line. I've ordered this war to be over. You know, I can't even do it. Very inclined towards that. And what Psychotic said is absolutely true as well. This war. Yes, you know what? Absolutely. This section is a gameplay and a story plus. Gameplay because it's another of those pauses in the gameplay for all those other things like I keep referencing, you know, a non-combat section, and a big plus for the story, for how well written and how well presented this whole section is. There's a lot of subtlety in here, and a lot of it got across in the English version. So hell yes, absolutely some more pluses. And this is when he finally turns the tone on. Note he still hasn't mentioned Terra at all. He mentions he's like, well, we have found out where the Espers are going. Keep in mind, based on the Magicite thing, it is very likely he had already found out about the significance of Thamasa and already knew about Crescent Island in general. We must tell the Espers we are no longer their enemy. It is up to me to set things right. That is why I need to borrow Terra's power. Note how long it takes for him to get to the point. Again, Conversation Manipulation 101. Take your time getting to what you actually want to talk about, what you want to discuss, what you want from the other person. Don't just, you know, I mean, I'm the kind of guy who prefers to actually walk up to someone and say, "Hey, Tara, I need your help." But if you're trying to manipulate, if you're trying to be a bastard like Gestalt is here, you take your time. You work your way through the conversation, meander a bit, all the things I've been talking about, and then finally, towards the end of the conversation, say, and because of all these reasons I've given, that is why I need to borrow Terra's power. Only Terra can bridge the gap between Esper and human. And once again, he lies by telling the truth. If you say no, you actually lose points there. And then the final cherry on the sundae, he sends Leo with you. Of course he sends Leo with you. Gestalt's not an idiot. He knows exactly how much General Leo is going to be able to... I should have brought Cyan for this scene. You get an extra line if Cyan is here. He knows exactly how much Leo means to the party. He knows that Leo is going to be the one who's going to deal with them on the straight and narrow, and he can lie to Leo, and Leo will believe him. This is wonderfully beautiful, because Leo is so desperate for... Yeah, exactly. He sends the Paladin after you. Leo is so desperate to believe that he hasn't been, working for this evil, horrible empire for all his life and all his career, that he wants to believe this is true. And so he embraces it. Yes, peace, an end to the war, an end to all of this stuff. And so Leo goes with you, and Leo is actually legitimately helping you, which again helps sell the deception. And yet again is lying by telling a truth. Because Leo is 100% honest and sincere in his desire to help and his desire to work with this. And it's awesome. Hey, Kyonko. What's up, man? Or woman. I don't mean anything by that. What is up, person, is what I actually mean. But it's awkward to say person, so usually when I say man, I don't actually mean male. I hate having to add the asterisk there, but it's true. So what's up, dude? Once again, no gender implied. We're playing through some FF6. Awesome. Terra, you are our last hope. By the way, that's done on purpose, not just for the Star Wars reference. It's actually a deliberate callback to the fact that Bannon called Terra our last hope, quite a bit earlier in the game. Whether or not that means anything about Bannon actually being an Imperial agent is irrelevant. It is a deliberate thematic storytelling callback to that line. That first the Returners felt Terra was their only hope, and then the Empire felt that Terra was their only hope. Even if Bannon was not an Imperial agent, that is some wonderful thematic symmetry. I also like how Locke immediately and without question volunteers to go with Terra, because of course he does. The rest of them stay here. And it's funny because literally none of the party members say anything along the lines of, no we do not, Javan. Literally none of the other characters say that they trust the Emperor or trust this peace initiative. So they leave the heavily armed, heavily armored warrior, soldier, adventurers, and Setzer back here in Vector, specifically so they can keep an eye on things and make sure things don't go bad, and so I can start losing frames on Twitch, because that's what I like doing. I like losing frames on Twitch. Now we get rewarded for our performance. This, I'm debating giving this another plus to the review section there, because the whole section has been pretty awesome. But what I mean by this is Imperial troops have withdrawn from South Figaro. What's the significance of that? What's the gameplay benefit of that? Well, there isn't any. But they do it specifically so it feels like you're being rewarded for your efforts in this thing in a lore sense. Troops have pulled out of Doma. What's the significance of that? Well, there actually is a significance of that. Being able to go to Doma allows you to get a relic that I think you can't get anywhere else. I might be wrong about that, but I remember when I'm doing a 100% run of this game, I specifically make it a point of going to Doma in the World of Balance to get the beads. The beads are what they're called. They give you a huge dodge chance. The Imperial Base is one of the big ones. You get a lot of awesome items there. And you get the Tintinabar. This item is something that saved my life in the floating continent. For those who don't know, the Tintinabar makes it so every step you take, whoever has it equipped heals a little bit. And I was out of mana, and I was out of potions, and I was out of tents. And for those of you who don't know the floating continent, up until you get basically all the way through the entire dungeon, you can't leave it. So I had no way to go and restock. So the Tintinabar was the only way I could heal. And then if you go impeccable, you get the Charm Bangle. This is an item that reduces the random encounter rate. Doesn't remove it like the Moogle Charm does, but reduces it. What it actually does is it increases the amount of, it halves the amount of number that you generate each step you take. The way that works is every time you leave combat or enter a new zone that has combat, a number is generated. I'm just going to make up numbers here, like it's 100. So every step you take, you gain 25. So 25, 50, 75, 100, 4 steps, you get an encounter. Make sense? With the Charm Bangle on, you would be generating like 17 or 16 or something like that per step. So in other words, that would take 8 steps to get into a random encounter. That kind of a thing, right? No, you can't stutter step in this game at all. It doesn't work like that because it actually tracks per tile movement, and tile movement is impossible to do without manipulating, even with frame timing. I've tried it. So you can't actually stutter step. You can only do it in the 3D ones. You can do that in 7 to an extent, but it doesn't work the same way as in 9. So that's the Charm Bangle, the Tintinabar, some awesome stuff. We're going to set these guys up a little bit differently. We are going to go ahead and set up the Charm Bangle because this is not my strongest party here. And these two are going to be kind of struggling for some of the sections we're going through. I have been leaning a lot on Edgar and Sabin because I'm actually pretty low level. I'm only level 17. Look at that. 18 on her, 17 on him. So yeah, I'm actually pretty damn low level. So I'm going to be pretty careful here. I want him to get started on that. And we'll go ahead and get her off that for now to do that. So this is when they talk about all sorts of stuff you can do. You can talk to a few of the troops. Blah, 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 blah. There's some... So I love this section. It's pretty awesome. I love the fact that they open up the things. By the way, the funny fact is they open up Doma and South Figure. You can't actually go there until you get the airship back, which again will not happen for a little bit. One other thing, really quick. Sorry, wanted to show this off. I forget where Gao is. If anyone remembers where Gao is, feel free to tell me. Sabin's out there, Edgar's in here. I know where Cyan is, off the top of my head. He's right in here. Watching Kefka. I like that, by the way. I like the idea that Cyan is just in here keeping watch on Kefka. I like the idea of Cyan just trying to prevent himself from breaking into the cell and killing Kefka. And just forcing himself not to, by sheer willpower. I like that idea. I like the concept of that kind of a scene. You know what I mean? Hang on, we got to do one more thing before we go. This is always important. Before you go on a long trip, anywhere, this is true. You know, if you're driving, if you're taking a plane or a car or whatever, make sure you go to the bathroom. Very important. How many other FFs let you go to the bathroom? Real question, because I can't remember any off the top of my head. Oh, I'm sorry. This whole section deserves another graphics plus. Just occurred to me because of how frickin' awesome the vector design is, and for the Imperial Palace. There we go. That doesn't count, Samurai. The ancient tradition of men does not count. I still find myself wondering how Vivi can actually do that. One of the Breath of Fires, I forget which, lets you actually go into the bathroom. I think it's 2. Not sure about that. One other nice touch here, which I'm not going to give a graphics plus, but it is kind of a graphics plus, is that... Oh, there he is. So there's Gao. Smells like parents' house here. Why so familiar? I forgot about this line. I was going to talk about this. Um, so, you ever wonder why this area smells like his parents' house? I only bring this up because I've heard one of those weird, random, screwed up theories that his father was an Imperial, and actually Gao was born here, somewhere in the Imperial area, somewhere in Vector specifically, and that his wife died in labor, and then he, lost it, and went all the way to the Veld from here. And then he went from the Veld up and ended up settling in that house up north. I don't know if that's true or not, but it does make you wonder why Gao finds the scent of Vector, of all places, familiar. Javan, of course, has the most insightful thing to say about Vector. Kupo. And occasionally, Kupopo. I'm going to go ahead and break for lunch really quick here, guys. Get some food in me. Probably taquitos. They're cheap and easy. What do you want from me? But then we're going to go back and we're going to finish up Act 3. In my opinion, Season 3 is not done yet. This is, of course, just my opinion. People always disagree on what is a good act beginning, act end, and there's not necessarily any right or wrong when it comes to that. But in my opinion, we haven't really had a significant enough moment to terminate Act 3 yet, to terminate Season 3. And we're just gonna run. I don't think I have the firepower to kill these guys with these two right now. A very possible, Lex, absolutely. Gao's father could have already been messed up, and then his wife dies in childbirth? That'd break anybody. I mean, shoot. There we go, saved. Alright, I'll be back in a few, guys. Ugh. But first, messed up graphics.